There's so many, we won't have the chance to read the complete bio on them, but as your name is read, if you'd please stand, and if you have family members here, have them stand with you. Let us recognize and applaud you. And then once everyone is recognized, we'd like to, as the board, like to come down the front and have the new not new employees, but those that are being promoted, come on up and take a picture with the board. And so first, we have a new Director for Strategic Initiatives and Program Development to announce, and that is Kirsten Reno Frosto. Kirsten has been in the district a number of years and currently serves as the principal of Washington Elementary School. Congratulations, Kirsten. New principal for Woodcrest Elementary School, Jeanette Prescott. Jeanette, would you please stand? And Jeanette, I see you have family with you as well, correct? Your husband and your son. All right, congratulations. And Jeanette currently is an assistant principal at Lake Matthews Elementary School. As mentioned, she'll be the new principal at Woodcrest Elementary School. Next, the new principal at Jackson Elementary School is Miss Jolynn Barnes. Congratulations, Jolynn. Jolynn's formerly been a principal at Tomas Rivera Elementary School and has worked at the district office and currently oversees the Hearts program at Emerson Elementary School. The next is Kathy Dabrowski, new principal at Mountain View Elementary School. Kathy, you have family with you as well? Your husband and children? All right, welcome. Appreciate that. Kathy has been with us for over a year. She came from Harupa Valley Unified School District, where she taught and was in the district office for a number of years. She currently is the assistant principal at Pachapa Elementary, and as I mentioned, she'll be the new principal at Mountain View Elementary. Congratulations. The next is new principal at Castview Elementary School, and that's Miss Tiffany Ferris. And Tiffany, you have family here with you as well. Your parents and your children. Wonderful. Tiffany's been in the Riverside Unified for a long time as a teacher and administrator. She currently is the assistant principal at Mark Twain Elementary School. And as I mentioned, she'll be the new principal at Castview Elementary School. The next is the new principal at Arlington High School, and that's Mr. Stephen Ibarra. Stephen, long time in Riverside Unified as a teacher and administrator. He currently is the principal at Sierra Middle School. And as mentioned, he will become the new principal at Arlington High School. Congratulations. And you have family here as well, I see. Wonderful. Welcome to your wonderful in-laws. And yeah, go ahead. Let's give all of them a round of applause.
Yeah, they're doing all this one at a time. And
I'd like to invite those names that were read, come on down to the front, and the board would like to take pictures with you.
Congratulations to all of those. We're going to start here in just a moment. Tonight's color guard is a joint JROT color guard that will include Arlington High School, Poly High School, and Ramona. And saying the Pledge of Allegiance tonight is young Nicholas Duran. Nicholas, will you come up? When the flag dips, when the California flag dips, you lead us in the pledge, all right?
Ready, cut, carry, colors. Ready, cut, present, colors.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
Carry, colors. Order, colors. Ready, cut. Right, peace. Forward, march. Left, left, right. Left, right, march. Left, left, ready, pull. Forward, close. Over, march. Left, left.
Seated. Well, how are you?
Very good. And you?
Well, I have, well, great. I have Mrs. Locke Dawson, who's going to talk a little bit more about you and help you introduce some of your friends. Mrs. Locke Dawson?
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I'm pleased to introduce Nicholas Duran, who you met in our Pledge of Allegiance. Hello, Nicholas. He's a sixth grade student and student council president from Benjamin Franklin Elementary. Nicholas has attended Franklin since kindergarten and has the academic distinction of earning the honor scholar level of achievement every trimester. And that means he's received at least 90 of his marks at the advanced level. In 5th and 6th grade, he has earned perfect scores. That's very impressive. Not only is he a talented student, but he approaches each assignment with maturity and enthusiasm and gives it his 100%. In addition to student council, Nicholas is part of our campus beautification efforts, and he works with 2 other students to write, edit, and film, and broadcast the Franklin Daily News in our YouTube channel. Along with his parents, Nick and Adriana Duran, he can be found volunteering at every campus event. Nicholas speaks Spanish fluently and is active in sports as well as in his church. Nicholas, I understand you want to one day sit on the Supreme Court. Is that true?
Yes, that would be true.
Okay. So that's if you're not elected to be president of the United States. That's what I was told. So. But either way, no matter what Nicholas ends up doing, his principal, Ms. Smith, has every confidence that he will no doubt achieve his goals and represent a brighter future for all of us. So thank you, and thank you to your parents. And would you like to introduce who's in the audience here with you today?
Yeah, I have my mom and dad.
Okay. Come on, Mom and Dad, stand up, please. And you have your teacher or your principal here?
Yes, Miss Dawn Smith.
Okay, Ms. Smith, hi. Okay, and if you want to stay right there, I have a certificate for you, and we can get a photo taken, and your parents can come up too.
And Ms. Smith? Gary Dreisel. Not Phyllis Code.
Yeah, you guys can stick around or you can go home.
I see Phyllis sitting out there. Okay. Thank you, Nicholas. All right. Now we're, as our arts presentation tonight, Mr. Gary Dreisel. He's going to introduce, is that right? Or is it? Come on up. Arlington High School. Mr. Dreisel.
President Hunt, board members, Eddie Ayala, the artist, was supposed to be here, but he had to work. Spielberg wouldn't let him off the set. So I was asked to read this. The project was the first place winner of the 16th Annual Academy Awards SmackDown show, and you have each received an invitation for the show. I'd encourage you all to come and see The Magic, created by the Media Academy. We will be featuring all kinds of work from photography, graphic design, videography, and it's always a great event. The Media Academy is a California Partnership Academy. The 3-year program is designed to give students an in-depth experience in photography, graphic design, animation, video production, and fashion design, all while supporting students academically. The Media Lab at Arlington is stocked with individual iMacs for each student to access industry-standard programs such as Adobe Creative Suite, Final Cut 10, utilize an online curriculum from lynda.com. Students earn certificates of completion for training these programs at their own pace. The senior media class is also articulated with RCC. This year, the seniors have also started Access A-Town, the first full television show at Arlington. It chronicles clubs, organizations, sports, and outstanding students and staff. Please check it out on YouTube, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Love it when you don't take no. Love it when you do what you want, 'cause you just said so. Let them all go home behind. We don't care what them people say.
Where is Eddie now, besides with Mr. Spielberg? Is he in college, or?
Yeah, he's taking some classes, I believe, over at RCC, and he's continuing with his art drawing. It's really phenomenal.
Eddie Ayala, everybody. That's Arlington grad. Thank you. Ms. Smeckel, thank you. Ms. Coates, thank you. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Pineda, I'm sorry. We blew that. All right, we have a special presentation now and a treat for everyone. Dr. Loveridge, who's been you might have heard he was our mayor for a while there, and really, since my 8 years on the board, I know Kathy even longer, he's been a great friend to this district, always looking for ways, when he was at City Hall, to work closer with the district. And I'm going to interrupt before you start, Dr. Loveridge, and bring the board down because they're sitting too comfortably, to give you just a small token of our appreciation in recognition of your commitment and dedication to RUSD. Thank you for your continued support for students, staff, and our community throughout the years. So if you would join me, board. Dr. Loveridge.
Members of the board, thank you for the invitation to speak. Would acknowledge the principles that you introduced. If you ask questions about the quality of life of the city, it's really found in its neighborhoods. And the single most important center of a neighborhood is the elementary school. So the principles you recognized or announced today have a lot to do with the health and vitality of neighborhoods of this city. And second, I recognize as I look back that not everyone who's in the audience came for A1 on the agenda, and so I will attempt to respect the reasons that they are here. Well, let me give my kudos to your commitment to K-12 education and to your involvement in the life and times of the city of Riverside. From my 51-year perspective in Riverside, I would rank this board as the best on my list. And as you recognize, with excellence and promise, there is also opportunity and responsibility. The future of Riverside as a good city is closely related to the success of RUSD. Should also note that my mother was a member of the Mount Diablo Unified School Board for some 14 years. Robert Putnam was in town, and a number of you heard him on March 11th. I want to thank you very much for your participation and sponsorship of the luncheon. Got this thank you note from Bob Putnam. It said, want to thank you most sincerely for all your hospitality during my visit to UC Riverside last month. It's hard to imagine a warmer welcome or more finely tuned set of arrangements than those you and your colleagues laid out for me and my wife, Rosemary. We both very much enjoyed the practitioner meeting and the community forum. He said, my visit to Riverside could not have been better. Robert Putnam's assessment is here. I think the real question is whether or not there is a life beyond the visit in terms of Putnam's book, Our Kids. I remember the beginning of the YouTube with Putnam, which the moderator from Aspen said, if you only read one book in 2016, you ought to read Our Kids. It's a book that should be read and talked about in place of conversation. My purpose today, and by invitation, was to, I'm sure I'm doing the technology correct, is to give you a very quick profile of this city. It comes from SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments. They have a profile of every county, and some 175 cities that make up this extraordinary region of Southern California. This is on their website, and you can find the same kind of information about every city in Southern California. This is a statistical Harvard, to see what's up here. This is the, you can see which is the first page, the profile of Riverside. Next is the discussion of population of the. Here's population of the city. Would call attention to the number. 315,000 people means we are a big city, 59th largest in the country. And I think if you load this too, if you look at the data from 2000 to 2014, we grew about the size of a council district. So you have a city that continues to grow. The next is a quick profile of the really diversity that you find now in our city. Hispanics represent something like 52% of the population. We are approximately 1/3 white, a number that is continuing to decrease. There are more Asians now than there are African Americans. I guess the point is that we are, in 2016, a much different city than when Art Littleworth was here as chair of RUSD. Quick, it's hard to read these numbers from here, but you might notice the household size and the and what is what exists. Some of the patterns here are interesting and important. The next one really is on look at home ownership, which has been relatively constant over the years. My own objective of mayor was a number of 60%. The next one really talks about how we're not particularly building housing units any longer in the city, a very low number. The next slide I think I'd particularly call your attention to because I found it a distressing slide. A slide that's sort of going in the wrong direction. You can see the number of loss of what's really called professional and management jobs over the last period of years in this city. It's a kind of interesting look at where the jobs are in Riverside. You can also see here the ones that have increased or ones have decreased. Particularly, I noted the decreasing percentages in construction, which we might expect in manufacturing, but also in transportation, finance, and professional. Interesting look at salaries, and you can see the high and low incomes, and particularly the high incomes are found in the kind of professional management positions. Low incomes, particularly in service jobs. Education, a lot of students, as you well know, some 60,000 if you count both school districts and public schools. There's an important statistic on those who have completed partly high school, but those also have completed college. Most people who look at cities use the talent dividend, the percent have graduated from college as an important measure of the likely success of a city. Let me offer it's directed here, 3 policy ideas and 3 calls for the board to consider. I thought about if I had a chance to recommend what you could focus on that perhaps are beyond the kind of things that the school board normally takes up. Here would be my three calls. The first is at home in Riverside, which was an effort to try to tell the story of what was happening in our schools. We don't compete well on test scores. And so the idea really came from Madison, Wisconsin, which was trying to say their schools were good in Madison, but they were doing more interesting things in the suburbs. So we had this program at home in Riverside. Some of you may have participated in it. And it was really to try to tell the story. I mean, I've gone to Bryan Elementary a couple of times, and I thought, my goodness, I wish the whole community could have joined me to experience what I found at Bryant in terms of students and teachers, the kind of excitement, what was being covered. I often thought that high schools need to send out their school newspapers. We need to encourage visits to the campus. We need to, I think, further work with our universities and RCC. But I guess the challenge that I would bring is restarting, reinventing this idea of at home in Riverside, and particularly why good things are happening in our schools beyond that question of test scores. The purpose, obviously, is to try to encourage greater middle-class choice. Riverside as a place to live. The second, and it's sort of related to this, is that what I would call kind of neighborhood alignment. So I think schools and the city and the county and the universities and RCC need to figure out that we're in the same ballgame, that we need to work together. Universities and RCC can't leave town. They have a high stake what's happening in place. We have the same taxpayers for the most part. It does seem to me that it's important to talk about the kind of common interests and how we can improve neighborhoods and how we can help schools. So on this item, look to the leadership of board to on the question of neighborhood alignment. The last is completion counts. This is a Gates program that funded the City of Riverside, RCC, RUSD, Alvord, the city for something like $1 million a year. We had a lot of kind of intense meetings and cooperation, but almost everybody involved in completion counts is gone, physically gone. And with that, much of what was agreed upon, much of the kind of excitement also has gone. One of the persons who's helped keep the flame alive and is Angel Rodriguez, who has worked in the mayor's office and is now at UCR. And we had a wonderful meeting with Lynn Carmen Day and talking about what completion counts was all about. And I think it's really important to think about restarting that, and I don't know how it's going to be restarted without your own leadership. So those are the three ideas that I think are central to the future of the city, and I think central to success of this school district, is that completion counts, neighborhood alignment, and at home in Riverside would ask you to consider this. I don't know how they take off effectively without your leadership. I commend them to you. With that, I think I've exceeded the patience of the audience, but I thank you for your attention. I did want to give to Tom Hunt the information from completion counts.
Yes, sir.
On top, Tom, is something called report card for 2012, and so it's stuck there. And somehow 2012 needs to be 2016.
Well, I can tell you that Dr. Farouk and I were having lunch today and talking just about some of the same things you were. The alignment is very important to this board, and I'm sure that all of us, respecting you as much as we do, will take this as part of our retreat and have it on the agenda. I'll leave it to Lynn how we figure out how we resuscitate completion counts, but certainly it was a high mark and the beginning, really, Dr. Loveridge, of what you try to do is bring us all together as a community and school districts and the universities. And I think Rick Miller and now Dr. Hanson and his team are really taking that forward. Would you take a few questions from our board while I ramble on? Dr. Farouk.
Hi, Professor Loveridge. Thank you so much for taking the time to share these thoughts with us. My question is regarding your second recommendation, neighborhood alignment. Obviously, from your experience with the City Council and being mayor, we are actually taking measures to actually have a joint City Council school board meeting coming up, I think in a couple months. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what kinds of strategic priorities from your perspective and experience that we can do to make that meeting as effective as possible.
One, meetings are important to kind of break bread and talk with each other, but then one also needs a kind of not so much a vision, but kind of a strategy. I sent to you the work of an intern at UCR who presented something to the Inland Empire cities, the League of California Cities, and there's all sorts of things that one can do in this relationship. But I guess my encouragement is that in addition to the city and the school district, you also have the universities and RCC, which have a deep interest in what's taking place in neighborhoods and in education. And then you have this county, which is it's providing the services, the same space. They're rarely at the table. And it seems to me if you have to bring the city and the school district together, but then you need to also, in my judgment, bring the universities and the county and ask, how can you share resources? How can you use leverage points that get you someplace you wouldn't otherwise get? And Riverside, the most single distinguishing characteristic of the city is the universities and RCC, and they need to be part of the table when you meet.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, trustee.
Just thank you, Dr. Loveridge, for your continued leadership, and thank you for organizing that Putnam discussion. I think those very opportunities allow everyone at the table to hear that same message and hopefully form some partnerships, offline, so they can continue doing some of that work that we heard Putnam mention in his book and in his talk. And then in reference to one of your recommendation in regards to the at-home in Riverside, I can tell you that the works are underway to get that program offline, and Dr. Hanson and myself and the mayor and a representative from the city manager's office met a few weeks ago to get those talks off the ground. I remember when I first started in real estate, when you were still mayor, the realtors and the mayor's office and the city had a good partnership, and I think it was really good for my colleagues to see our schools in action and see how wonderful an opportunity these students have to achieve success and not just look at test scores. So I think if we can get back to that, it's a good start in getting people familiar with how great our schools are and how great our neighborhoods are.
Kudos. I should point out that Sergio Diaz came to the luncheon, then he came to the community forum at the city council chambers, and then when he had his police foundation meeting next week, he essentially used the ideas of Putnam to help frame what he thought the city police department should be up to. But I'm glad to hear. Part of this is creating some momentum, and you got to get started, and sort of one thing then leads to another.
Dr. Loveridge, if there's someone else outside the RUSD family that's been the best friend to us, you're very close second, because I don't know who that person is, but I'll concede to whoever that person is, but you have been a great friend to this district. I know you're still busy with UCR and SCAG, and we hope you stay involved with us, and because your input has always been valued at this table by, I know the folks that are up here. Thank you so much for what you've done and all your service.
Well, Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Angel, good to see you. Always welcome at our meetings. Now, this is the time of year we begin to have different presentations, and this is always one of my favorites. I know the board's favorite. And so today we're going to talk about a group called HOPE. And Assistant Superintendent Antonio Garcia, would you elaborate for our community?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Hunt and Dr. Hansen, members of the board. For several years now, the Riverside Latino Network has sponsored Riverside Unified School District students, particularly Latina students from our high schools, to participate in the annual Latina History Day Conference in Los Angeles, which is hosted by HOPE, which stands for Hispanas Organized for Political Equality. I'd like to express my gratitude to the Latino Network, and I'd like to invite Darlene Trujillo Elliott, who is the president of the Latino Network, to share with you a presentation about the most recent experience of the students that participated in this event.
Trujillo, that's an old Riverside name, isn't it?
It's a very old name. So, well, thank you. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Darlene Trujillo Elliott, again, president of Latino Network. This program is very close to my heart because of, having Latinas get to experience strong, career-minded Latinas is really empowering for a lot of these girls. So before I get started, though, I wanted to go ahead and introduce our committee. So we have Patricia Reynolds, who is our treasurer for Latino Network, in the audience. Wave. We have our co-chair for the HLI program is Gabrielle Plencia.
Those are tough.
Yeah, it's close.
Gabrielle, you going to come back?
I know, this is bad. Marissa Yeager, and then we also have the girls here. Before I get started with the girls, I wanted to say thank you to RUSD and all the counselors and the chaperones and all the staff who helped us along the way. It's not easy coordinating this program and getting these girls to LA and to all the different events that we have. So we really appreciate all the support that you've given us. I do want to go ahead and introduce, and of course I can't read my own writing. We have McKenna Diaz from Poly High School. We have Lynette Martinez from Poly as well. We have Brianna Escobita from Ramona. And then we have a special guest from our Alfred School District is Karina Laura. See, can't read my own writing, from La Sierra High School. So I'm going to have the girls present because this is about them and this is a great experience for them. So thank you again.
Thank you, Darlene.
McKenna?
State your name when you come up. And
I'm McKenna Diaz. I'm a junior at Poly. On behalf of myself, Maria and Lynette, and Poly High School, I would first of all like to thank the Latino Leadership Network Institute and the Riverside Unified School District for their support of the Latino Hope Conference. At the conference, I personally learned the importance of making wise choices regarding higher education and money so that I can be better prepared for my future and everything. I also learned that everything is possible and it doesn't matter what economic situation that myself or anyone else is in, that I could achieve anything that I set my mind to. And Maria Sanchez was unfortunately able to be here, but she learned that she was able to participate in a managing money thing, and she thought it was really cool. And she learned that how jobs these days are looking for bilingual and diverse individuals. And yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynette Martinez from Poly High School. I'm a junior.
Pull it down there a little, Lynette. Just there you go. That's why we move it.
During the Latino Hope Conference, I was able to participate in different workshops to help us prepare for the future. In the financial workshop, I learned how to be prepared for college and the importance of being financially stable.
And then all three of us learned lessons that would prepare us for college and life after that. The stories we heard were really encouraging to us personally because it taught us to create goals for ourselves so we can determine our future. We will learn that we cannot let anything get in the way of our future and achieving our dreams. We learned that we all struggle in life and it's important to push ourselves, each other, as Latina women to succeed. And with this knowledge, we are all able to be committed to encourage not only Latino students at Poly, but all students at Poly who can use the support and push to reach their goals and to know that there's always an opportunity waiting for them.
As women, we will take risks and become the architects of our future. It is our job to take control of our education and future and push ourselves to fulfill our dreams.
Oh, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Brianna Escobedo. I go to Ramona High School, and I'm a junior. When we went to the conference, we each had a different reaction and experience that definitely stayed with us. When I saw the conference, I believed that I saw such strong and independent women that were able to achieve such amazing goals, and it definitely was inspiring. I think that we all sometimes doubt ourselves, especially the stereotypes, and it was a different experience and a different environment that was at this conference. One of the events that was held there was a STEM event in which different Latina leaders were there representing their achievements. There was a doctor, an engineer, there were entrepreneurs, and that was really eye-opening for me because I am definitely interested in STEM, so it was very inspiring to see those women, especially from their harsh backgrounds. So that was really amazing for me. I was one of the 3 people from Ramona to go. Also, Sandra Reyes went, and she thought that the conference helped her learn about the things that she's going to need when she's older. We went to an event in which they taught us about credit score, knowing how to manage a bank account, and she thought that the conference was really fun, and she enjoyed meeting everyone there. And finally, the last girl that went there was Kenya Torres Dominguez, and she thought that the conference showed her the history of the culture as Latinas in the United States, and it taught her that leadership for a minority group is very important, and that the conference helped her learn new things for the future based upon the STEM presentation and how to use money and credit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the young lady from Los here, or did you have something to add? We don't want you going back saying we're not friendly at Riverside, so.
No, she didn't,
My God,
she didn't bring her speech with her today, so she came just to support the girls.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
well,
very
what's great about it is, you know, we get up very early and get on the Metrolink bus, and so there becomes this bond. You know, all the different schools, our USD and Albert, they become very close by the end of it, so it's a great experience for all
How many young ladies are at the conference altogether?
For this conference, there were, I believe it was over 250. They had a waiting list of over 150 people to try. So next year they're looking for a bigger space. But it's worthwhile to take. We take 25 girls every year, so it is a great experience for them. Again, learning other people's stories is really powerful for them. So we're very proud of them.
Well, we thank you for the work that you and your friends do here, and love to see a way to see this. It's wonderful these young ladies got to go, but love to see opportunity for that to come to our city, and we would host it.
Well, we could talk.
We could talk.
Absolutely. The more, the one of the goals for me as the president this year is Latino Network, again, started in 1993, and it was Latino population was a lot smaller then. We've grown and doubled, and so it's really important that we start looking at how we can make a bigger impact in our own communities.
Absolutely.
Because if, again, Latinos aren't doing well, the city is not doing well. You heard the presentation from my ex-boss there, or my old boss.
Yeah, there's some disturbing statistics there. So
yeah.
The more we can, young ladies, thank you for volunteering, for wanting to be part of that, and we hope, the board hopes that you'll share your experiences and what you've learned with your fellow students until we can find a way to germinate it here and grow our own Latino program like this, our own HOPE program. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, speaking of young people, we have our high school representatives, and first up is Enrique Marino from Arlington High School. Enrique. Okay. This is your last time?
Yes, this is my last time.
Well, yeah, we want to hear about that too. So I want you to give a report, but then let us know what. Oh, you're a senior, aren't you?
Yes, I'm a senior.
So, all right, go, bud. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, President Tom Hunt, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, all other board members. My name is Enrique Moreno, and I'm the representative from Arlington tonight. As the end of the year approaches, great things are happening across the campus in and out of the classroom. There is no way to address all the awesomeness in 3 minutes, but I'm going to try. April began with 5 students participating in the Mayor's Entrepreneurship Challenge during their spring break. Upon returning to school, we celebrated our spring sports and our last pep rally of the year. The weekend of April 15th through the 17th, 135 students and 10 staff members cleaned the entirety of Ward 5 in partnership with Keep Riverside Clean and Beautiful. Our color guard took first place in the Winter Guard State competition. Our chamber singers traveled to Seattle in full sweep of the competition with first place in all 9 categories. Our newspaper, under advisor Phyllis Coate, traveled to LA for the National Journalism Convention, and Alan Bishorner was an excellence for sports writing. Our Air Force, JROTC, has also been recognized for their excellent support of veterans by Elks Lodge 643. Like I said, there are great things happening. This evening, I'd like to highlight 3 culminating activities from Arlington that highlight the impact of all 3 LCAP goals. I had the honor of participating in our Envirothon team under the director of advisors Sherry Harris and Scott Godwin. This academic team spends hours a week at school applying environmental science to real-life issues. Our team traveled to the College of the Canyons for a competition April 22nd through the 23rd in 5 areas: aquatics, soil, forestry, current issue, and wildlife, and it all focused on this year's topic of an invasive species. Although this is our first year back in the competition in several years, we did well, taking 4th overall in the state, 3rd place in aquatics, and 3rd overall in oral presentation. The team consisted of students from our AP Environmental Science classes, and LCAP funds helped set off this amazing experience for the students. On Wednesday, April 27th, our ASB hosted the 2nd annual Academic Signing Day. This event is specifically designed to highlight our college-bound Lions. We had 92 students participate this year, representing 20% of our senior class. Each student signed their commitment publicly to attend and graduate from his or her school of choice in front of a standing room. Parents, family, and friends celebrated each graduate as they shared their college, intended major, and future career choice. Another special aspect of this unique event is that each student selected an inspirational teacher to stand behind them as they signed. Although most were Arlington teachers, we also had a few middle school teachers. Thank you, Board President Tom Hunt, for attending and wishing our students success as they follow their dreams in being college and career ready. The celebration continued on Friday, April 29th, as we congratulated the top 12 seniors in a special breakfast in their honor. Attended by their family and close friends, students were recognized for their exceptional commitment to their education for the past 13 years. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Don't go anywhere. We're going to do this all at once. So that we do them individually, but I'm too old to get up and down that many times.
All right.
So I appreciate it. We're going to hear from Jessica Norris next.
Sounds good.
No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Tell me, where are you going to school? I've forgotten. See, I'm old. Go ahead.
I will be attending the University of California, Davis.
Oh, good. And majoring in?
What's that?
Majoring in?
I will be majoring in biological sciences with a double major in biomedical engineering.
Oh. Poli-sci wasn't available, huh? Is that? Is he going to best major? Well, it's a great place to live. Congratulations. We're very proud of you.
Thank
we'll
you.
be right back with you. Jessica Norris, who's spoken to us many times, and she's glad to have you here, Jessica.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys. Mr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. I'll be presenting for King, as they said. I'd like to tell you guys that Link Crew will be hosting a program called Freshman Final Finish, and the freshmen are inviting to get tutoring and assistance to prepare them for their finals. There'll be over 50 Link Crew leader tutors, as well as teachers and other staff members helping them. And we're also inviting students who look like they're struggling in classes. Teachers have sent recommendations, and we're sending them personal invitations to come to the session. King High's annual Spark Academic Rally will take place Friday, May 27th, and this is where we take the time to recognize all of our academic teams, as well as students like the top 10 and all of our just academic and robotics and all of those awesome things. Our counselors conducted an A through G audit for our current juniors. We are extremely proud to say that out of 789 juniors, 552 are A through G compliant. The counselors will continue to work with all the students in order to increase the number of students that meet A through G requirements in order to open up more opportunities for students to attend a four-year university. Under Goal 2, May features our spring musical, Once Upon a Mattress, starting next week, and we hope to see some of you guys there. And also, our third annual PAT Gala on Thursday, May 26th at 4:30 p.m. for the best of the best performances, the art show, and reception featuring all of our VAPA programs. Last week, King Deca traveled to Nashville to compete in the international competition. With over 17,500 competitors, 2 of our sophomores actually placed. Aislinn Liu and Angela Zhu placed second in the Sports and Entertainment Marketing Operations Research event, and their project consisted of a 30-page written business plan and a 15-minute presentation to a judge in that area. So that's really awesome that they're only sophomores and they got to do that. This business plan will actually be published and distributed to assist other DECA chapters in training for this event. King High Science Fair projects all earned either first or second place in their representative categories, and there were over 900 projects at the competition. There were 22 different categories, and King earned first place in 5 of these 22 categories. On Saturday, April 23rd, 20 of our best game and web designers competed in the 18th annual Riverside Community College Digital Media Competition. Sophomore Carolyn Kong took first place in the game design category. Her project, Aquatic Codeliner, is an interactive video game that helps teaches players how to conserve water. King High School is also sending 18 students to the National History Day Championship in Sacramento on May 6th through the 7th. Students will be competing for the opportunity to go to the National History Day, which will be held at the University of Maryland in June. This is the most students King has ever sent to the state competition, and we're very proud. Thank you guys for your time. Do you have questions?
Well, you certainly have a strong sophomore class, don't you?
Yes, we do. They're amazing.
Wow. Jessica, you and Eric have traded off back and forth reporting to us. What's your plans for next year?
I'll be attending the University of Texas at San Antonio.
Oh, really?
Yes.
The Roadrunners, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And why did you choose that?
I'm majoring in political science, and so just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to be doing an integrated program for my credentials, and then I'm going to be doing law school after that and pursuing my PhD in education. So I want to do everything in Texas, and then I also am looking to move back to California and do everything again. But I want to teach at King, hopefully, when I'm older.
There you go. Well, we want to see you back teaching for us. If you'll just hang on a little bit here, we'll go from there. Because next is Maribel Galarzo. Thank you, Jessica. Hi, Maribello.
Hi.
How are you? How are things at Lincoln?
Very good.
All right, let's hear about it.
Good evening, Board President Mr. Hunt and Superintendent Dr. Hanson and members of the Board. I am Maribel Galarza, and I'm the representative for Abraham Lincoln High School. I would like to report the following reasons for Panther Pride. On April 27th, the School of Career Education, Adult ROP, invited seniors to tour the school and visit their medical, dental, nursing, pharmacy tech, and welding programs. 18 of our seniors participated in this field trip and enjoyed learning about the medical field. On Friday, May 13th, we will celebrate our Model Continuation School recognition from 9 a.m. to noon. 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., students will have a continental breakfast with Dr. Carl Kahn, Executive Director of the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., we will have a celebration ceremony in the gymnasium. 11 a.m. to noon, we will have a student celebration rally hosted by Friday Night Live. This activity that students can't wait to have because we remember the great rally that FNL gave us for Halloween with lots of music, games, and popcorn. Lincoln's soccer team is off to a great start. We are confident that the soccer team will do as well as our volleyball team and basketball teams, or better. Those teams almost made it to the championship, but hopefully soccer will make it. Students are excited and ready to win. Good luck, Panthers. Senior Award Night is scheduled for June 1st in the school gym. Students will be awarded various scholarships in addition to prizes for perfect attendance, good citizenship, and Athlete of the Year. The Senior Fiesta Taco Lunch is scheduled for June 3rd in the quad area from 12 to 1 p.m. This event will allow all seniors to have the opportunity to have lunch with their graduating class. Our commencement ceremony will be taking place at the Grove Community Church at 6 p.m. on Monday, June 1st. We are proudly expecting about 80 graduates for the class of 2016. The senior grad field trip is scheduled for May 20th at Knott's Berry Farm. This concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Maribel. You know what? I want you to know, you can just take it. The board, these 5 people fight over who gets to do the Lincoln graduation. Everybody loves to go do the Lincoln graduation because y'all are so much fun. So what are you going to be doing next year?
Next year, I'm going to be attending Abraham Lincoln High School.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, and we'll see you back next year then. All
Yes.
right. And so hopefully you'll be back with us next year.
Yes.
Thank you for your work this year. We're going to hear from someone else, and then so we're going to hear from Madison Hebert. Madison is with our Education Options Center and our Riverside Virtual School.
Good evening,
Good evening, Ms.
Dr.
Hebert.
Hunt, or Mr. Hunt, and Superintendent Dr. Hanson, members of the board. Before I start, I would like to give a quick thank you to Mr. Dietz and all the members of the board for having me here, and it's been an honor to represent EOC. I've truly enjoyed it. Let's get started. We held our practice CASP testing, and this week we're going to start testing in earnest. Also, we will have AP testing this week. On March 16th, we had a UCLA field trip, and students got to tour the beautiful campus.
I've heard that, yes. Very nice.
It was actually my second time going. It was so much fun. And we learned a whole bunch about all of the opportunities that UCLA holds for students. And I may be biased, but Gaming Club took several students to USC by train, and it was so much fun. We learned about gaming principles and...
You got home safely too, right? Okay.
Yes.
Good to know. I was worried about that. Go ahead.
We learned about new opportunities in game design and ways that we can get into USC. It was very educational. I feel like it was very helpful. And also, Gaming Club will be welcoming Steve Massa from the City of Riverside's Economic Development Coordinator, or he is the Economic Development Coordinator, on Friday, May 6th, and he will be talking to us about upcoming tech jobs in Riverside and the ways that it can benefit us and how technology is coming to Riverside. And I am very happy to highlight 2 students, Jacob Swartz and Autumn Rivera, who attended 4 conferences on March 24th, and they went to workshops on export trade assistance and received certificates from the CITD and the U.S. Small Business Administration. We're very proud of them. Also, our Model UN students are preparing diligently for a conference on Saturday, May 21st. And last but definitely not least, thank you very much, King High School, for sharing your prom with EOC students. It was so much fun. Also, thank you, Dr. Hanson and Mrs. Alavi, for visiting our school and speaking with our teachers and students. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. So in your biased opinion, where will you be going next year?
I will still be in high school.
Oh, you still be in high school?
I'm
All
a
right.
freshman, yeah.
Oh, you're a freshman?
Yes.
Well, Ms. Hebert, I'm looking forward to seeing you many times up here. That's good.
Thank you.
That's very good. You're quite good. I think we have Dr. Hanson. I'll hand it over to you now to talk about this little trinket we have for everyone.
Again, I'll echo what President Hunt has said. It's absolutely wonderful to have these reports every month. We have 8 students that give reports, and tonight is the first 4, and this is the last time that these schools will be here to report. And next board meeting, which is on May the 31st, we'll have your counterparts with us. But we do have, as a token of our appreciation, a gift for you, some flowers for you, and as the superintendent and the board want to come down and take pictures with you. And again, we express our heartfelt gratitude for how well you've represented yourselves, your family, and your schools throughout this last year. So let's give them one more round of applause.
Thank you. We're having one made for you, too. Thanks, Maribel. We'll see you next year.
up behind again, or do you want to send it? Oh,
It's true.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Good luck to you. Good luck at Davis, right? Yes. That's a great place to live. Really.
Thank you.
Did they tell you it's humid in San Antonio?
Thank you.
It's very humid. I have all cousins down
And they're all on tornado watch right now.
Yes, they are.
Do you want me to take it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know how much y'all like sticking around. If you want to go do homework, that's fine. You can stay with us. We're glad to have you. But we're going to transition right now over to Dr. Hansen's superintendent report.
Thank you, President Hunt, and again, congratulations, and thank you to the students. And I want to, again, congratulate all those employees that received recognition this morning for being promoted. We're excited to have you be leaders in this district of the schools or in the department, and we look forward to having you continue the great work here in Riverside Unified. Congratulations first go out to Bryant Elementary School, who successfully completed the California Gold Ribbon School Program application process and is being recognized as one of the 772 California Gold Ribbon Schools for 2016. For those that may not be aware, but the Gold Ribbon Schools is formerly the California Distinguished School. And the award reflects the school's success in creating a positive learning atmosphere for students, and such success is a direct result of their creative, talented, and dedicated staff and the support from their community. The California School Recognition Program Award Ceremony will be held on May 10th in Anaheim. Second, I'd like to recognize, or through nominations by the principals, educators, and counselors, and community leaders, Riverside Youth Council annually selects students to be named as Riverside's most remarkable teens. And the annual recognition of students has become a cornerstone for showcasing the extraordinary accomplishments of young people in Riverside. 19 of the 25 students recognized were RUSD students. And they were recognized on April the 26th during the Riverside City Council meeting. Very, again, pleased with the work of the kids that are happening and being recognized at the city. So just a shout out to all of those students. And currently, or lastly, at our last board meeting, the Board of Trustees approved 2 resolutions. You'll recall that the first was in recognition of California Day of the Teacher, which is on May the 11th, here in a couple of weeks, and the other recognized May 15th through the 21st as Classified School Employee Week. The board members and I would like to thank our dedicated employees during the Employee Appreciation Month, which is the month of May, for all that you do each and every day to enrich the lives of our students and have a focus on students each and every day. Now I'd like to share just a quick thank you video on the screen, again expressing our gratitude for all the work of the 4,000 plus employees we have here in this district. Again, as superintendent and on behalf of the Board of Education, truly, truly grateful. Our greatest resource are our employees. And the work that you do for students each and every day, cannot thank you enough. And a quick shout out to the communications department who put that short little video to get together over the weekend. But let's give the recognition, a round of applause to all of our employees for being such outstanding. To conclude my report, I'd like to have our Chief Business Officer, Mays Kakish, give a brief update to the board, and she'll be followed by our Chief Academic Officer, Lynn Carmody, with report from Ed Services.
Good evening. I'm here to report to you on the refunding of our general obligation bond series of 2001. You remember in March you gave us authorization to go out and seek refunding, which is refinancing. It's just the term for the bonds. And on April 26, the Riverside Unified School District finalized the sale of the general obligation refunding bonds and provided taxpayers with approximately $3.3 million, which is a present value of $2.1 million of today's dollars. The district was able to refinance existing bonds by taking advantage of low interest rate and achieved the savings without extending the term of the originally issued GO bonds. And the district GO bonds issued under Measure B, approved by the voters in 2001, under state law, all savings from the Measure B bond refinancing will be directly back to the taxpayers. So we're very happy that with those results.
I want to point out a couple of other student recognition at the Riverside County Student Academic Achievement Awards. We had 3 of the top 10 students in the entire county come from our schools. And I'm not going to tell you more about that because I know that you will all be present at our event celebrating all of our students, celebrating student excellence. That's on May 16th at 6 p.m. at the Ramona Theater. We also had some fun last week. Board President Hunt, myself, and the principal at Mark Twain Elementary School had an opportunity to celebrate an important opportunity for water safety awareness at our schools. And they visited that school, the fire department, Riverside Fire Department, captain, chief, firefighters across Riverside, and they read to our students. And it was Stewie the Duck, so you can check out some photos of that event. It was a lot of fun. I wanted to just make mention also that our student assistance program is flourishing now. We officially have all of our counselors hired and in place, so we've been gradually working towards that, and now they're all on board with us. For our foster youth students, we are holding an event June 11th. It's going to be a half-day workshop at Central Middle School. It's called Gaining Purpose and Stability, Creating Opportunities, Building Skills for the Future of RUSD Foster Students. This is an event that we partner with Southern California Gas, Bank of America, CBU, and ourselves. The last thing that I want to make note of is that we will have Special Education Community Advisory Committee Awards, and that is our 18th annual, entitled Making a Difference in a Student's Future Award Night. It will be taking place on Thursday, May 12th at 5:30 p.m. at the Central Middle School. I hope that you will join us for that. There is one other thing I want to make mention of. On May 11th and 12th, we will be having the Executive Director of the Great Schools Partnership, David Roof, out to Riverside. And he works for the Great School Partnerships, who works on systems application across the United States. So he's coming here to support our work with competency-based learning, specifically on the portrait of the graduate. We've always worked hard on mastery of essential learning since the 97 standards. Now we're looking at taking that into other domains, such as the communications, the civic engagement of our students, and all of those kinds of things. So something that you'll hear more and more about, and I wanted to just make you aware of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carmody and Ms. Kakish, for those updates, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson, Ms. Carmen Day, Ms. Kadish. We appreciate it. Next, we're going to hear from our Arlington cluster and Director Dennis Dietz of Educational Opportunity Center and the Virtual School, your fellow Blackfoot tribe member from Indian Princesses. What was your name? I don't remember your Indian name. What was it?
I don't remember. That's short for I don't remember. The podium's really getting far away. I think my eyes may need some better glasses. Good evening, Board President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, board members. I'm here tonight to talk about the RUSD Arlington cluster. Our cluster includes 6 elementary schools: Harrison, Hawthorne, Jackson, Lake Matthews, Liberty, and Monroe, 1 middle school, Shamawa, 1 high school, Arlington, and 2 additional schools, STEM and EOC. The Arlington cluster is generally located in the southwest side of our district. We serve roughly 8,800 amazingly awesome students. Our cluster principals have been meeting consistently for at least the last 3 years. And I can honestly say this is one meeting that I really do look forward to each month. Last November, we were sharing out with one another about the personalized learning programs that we're all implementing. We discovered that although we are not all PL grant-funded schools, we are all in various stages of implementing aspects of personalized learning. So when asked to present on our cluster, this seemed like an obvious choice of focus. In a minute, I will show you a video created by the Arlington High School video production students highlighting voice and choice across our cluster. Let me begin, though, by giving some context. Personalized learning includes listening to students by listening to students' voices and providing appropriate learning activities from which they may choose. But choices cannot be made in a vacuum, so at least for this presentation, we'll combine both arts and STEM as they blend nicely to create STEAM: sciences, technologies, engineerings, arts, and maths. The Arlington cluster is dedicated to meeting students where they are academically and socially. With the guidance and coaching of our teachers, our students develop the skills needed to be college-ready, career-ready, and world-ready. By providing them with a wide variety of rigorous learning activities, students are able to discover and pursue their passions. Please keep in mind that although all of the students you will see in the video appear to be thoroughly enjoying themselves, all are working on grade-appropriate standards. Dr. Hattie says, learning does not follow from engagement. Rather, when students are learning, they are engaged. Can I see the video, please?
What did you enjoy most about this project?
The thing that I most enjoyed about this project is that we can do it about anything we want and anything that can just help inspire other people to stop or do something. For example, like I'm doing it about California pollution and drought, and it really interested me how people got it, their response to it. They were like surprised, wow, this is actually a really big problem, and the pictures that I showed them made them really think differently.
Have you ever had an experience in school before where you had to do a project similar to this?
The closest thing that I've ever had to do about this is maybe like a science fair project, but not necessarily, and I feel like this is a very good impact, and it's been a really good opportunity for me.
What are you working on?
Making a balancing lever to show potential and kinetic energy.
I said that I wanted a deal in Hollywood. I told them I'd be singing on TV. The other kids were calling me a wannabe. The older kids lunch, they started bugging me. But now they're all standing right in front of me. Mama said that it was okay. Mama said that it was quite alright. Our kind of people had a bed for the night, and it was okay. Mama told us we were good kids, and Daddy told us never listen to the ones pointing nasty fingers and making fun, 'cause we were good kids.
Right, and which application are we going to click on to open it up?
The slides, the yellow one.
The yellow one that says slides, very good. So click on that.
That's where I go. An old friend can give advice when new friends only know a half story. That's why I always keep them tight, and why I'm okay. I said I'm okay. You know what my mama said? You know what she told me? My mama said that it was okay. Mama said that it was quite alright. Our kind of people had a bed for the night, and it was okay. Mama told us we were good kids, and Daddy told us never listen to the ones pointing nasty fingers and making fun, 'cause we were good kids. And Mama said that it was
I'm Ms. Cooper, and I am one of the personalized learning teachers. And personalized learning in my class is different almost every day. We start off the beginning of the class with a little bit of review, a starter, and a discussion of the homework. Then most days the students get right onto the computers and pick up where they left off.
flexibility of it and how much choice we had, because a lot of times with school projects they'll tell you this is what you're doing and this is how you're going to do it, and with this project we had complete control over what we were doing. We had the choice of what we were doing the project on, what we were making, how we presented it, and I really overall liked that control of what I was doing.
Celebrate diversity and show love universally, 'cause everyone on earth is part of one community.
Excuse me. The Arlington Cluster leverages technology to help students individualize their learning experiences. In so doing, students learn their academic and personal strengths, their learning modalities, which are often different for different subjects, and their unique needs relative to grade level standards. Students learn to take ownership for their education, including how they set and meet both their short and long-term goals. Our long-term goal is to develop and implement personalized learning opportunities for all students. These help students navigate their education to best meet individual needs while exposing them to the tremendous array of career options that lay before them. From aerospace engineer to Hollywood costume designer to cancer researcher to video game sound technician and everything in between and everything not yet conceived or invented. Students must graduate with critical thinking skills, the ability to read closely and analyze what they read. They must be able to write and apply math skills. They require an enormous amount of background knowledge on topics as diverse as American Constitution, the Krebs cycle, the causes of World War I, and of course the proper use of gerunds. But students also need to discover what they love to do. These discoveries do not happen without the right settings or opportunities. The Arlington Cluster teachers make these opportunities available to students starting at early elementary school and continuing through high school graduation. The ongoing challenge is to find and provide the resources needed to make personalized education available to all 8,800 wonderful and unique students in our area, today, tomorrow, and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dietz. Do we have any questions for Dr. Dietz or any of the members? I guess you knocked it out of the park, Doctor. Thank you.
I was going to say, Raul and my team will be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Now we move on to public input. Any item that is not on the agenda and we can talk about. So first to be Debbie Cooley, Suzette Williams, Maria Miramonte, Sandy Garcia, and Denise. Are we all coming up? Okay, and this is about no topic. Just whatever comes to your mind, Carrie, or what?
No.
What's the
I'm going to
topic?
let them speak, but good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hansen, and the board. These are some of the paraeducators that you sent to the paraeducator conference, and they just wanted to give you a little bit of input and feedback from what they did. So.
Let's just stop the clock and let them have time. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Just let us know who's first.
We both
We'll
work
do it.
All right.
agreement.
We'll do it together. Hi, my name is Debbie Cooley, and I work at Sunshine, and I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to attend this. It was amazing. We learned new things to help our students grow and learn, and it was an awesome experience, and thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Cooley.
Hello, I'm Suzette Williams. I'm from Castroville Elementary, and I do want to thank the whole board for allowing me to go. Personal growth is always great, especially 17 years in the district. There's always more room for more. And I also wanted to thank my principal, if she's here, Erica Square, because she's been behind us on that too. It's always great to have personal growth and grow even more for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Hi, my name is Maria Miramontes. I'm the head custodian at Castleview, and I just want to thank you for giving this opportunity. I loved it. It inspired me to further my education and bring back a lot of that knowledge that I gained to apply it to school, because I feel like it's very important, no matter what position we are. It's all important. We're all here for the students.
Thank you, Ms. Vermont.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Alimas, and I work at Frank Miller Middle School. And I just want to say that I really enjoyed going to the conference, listening to different speakers like Tim Dalfine and Delaney, I forget her name. But I really enjoyed the fact that we're able to, take workshops, and it kind of covers what we actually have to use in the classroom, dealing with autism and just understanding the whole different kind of dynamics within the classroom, which was amazing to just find out more information. So it was a good experience, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to guess you're Sandy Garcia.
I am.
There we go. Wow, look at that.
Good evening. I want to say thank you for sending us all. It was a wonderful experience. I'm not a paraeducator, but I wanted to learn about them, and I was so impressed with everything that they do. Every month I read our website about all our amazing kids, all the ones that have been up here today, and all the successful things that they do, and they're just amazing. But a lot of times we don't hear about these other kids that just getting through one day without a meltdown, raising their failing grade to a D or a C. Those are the kids that I really feel close to, because if we don't reach them, if these dedicated people don't reach them, you know, we end up spending more money on them, and I just have a lot of appreciation for what they do, and I thank you. I hope you send them again if it stays here in Southern California. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you very much for listening to them. These are just a few of the 20 that you did send this year, and hopefully the next meeting I can have some more come. Time-wise, it just didn't work. And I also wanted to let you guys know, I have buttons for you for our Classified Employees Weeks, which starts May 15th. We're having our picnic we've invited you all to, and I've seen most of you can attend at Amelia Earhart. A lot of fun, taco guy. Great, thanks. And I also have a blue wristband if you would like to wear it. We are promoting Bell to Bell, keeping them safe, well, and fed in the district, and it's our goal as CSEA members to get as much of these hours back as that we have had in the past that were eliminated, or extending some of the hours so we keep all of our kids safe and well in the schools. So I have those for you guys.
We love swag. Go ahead. Hand them
well,
out there.
It's plastic swag, so I'll pass them out to you, but thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Do I have to report this? Do you know? Okay. No, you don't have to. Okay. All right. Good. I want to be sure. The press is here, so I want to just be careful. Yeah. Thank you, Carrie, for all you do as well. Thank you, ladies, for coming up. You are an investment for us. We're in the people business together, so the little people business, and so we're investing in our staff. That's what that is. Now to hear from our Riverside Association of School Managers, Victor Cisneros is our chair this year of that. Victor, Mr. Cisneros.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. Today, I didn't bring you any swag, but I did bring some good news. I'd like to take this time to present our 2015-2016 RASM scholarship recipients, and this is actually our favorite part of the year, and we're only able to provide all these scholarships to this year for 6 kids with the generous donations of our managers across the district. I would first like to invite you all to attend Access Region 19 Spring Celebration, where 4 of our managers and 3 RUSD students will be recognized. Registration is now open, and I will forward the information to you all. And just to kind of recap, that was for the 4 region awards for Susan Mills, Kylie Barra, Joyce Threadgold, Sean Curtin, and then the Every Student Succeeding Award for the Ramona High School student Dulce Nance. And then also additionally 2 RUSD students receiving a Access Scholarship, Amaris Garcia, daughter of Antonio Garcia, and Madison McCombs, daughter of John McCombs. At this time, I would like the RASM board, whoever's here, to come up and help me in recognizing our RASM student scholarship recipients, and ask the students to come forward when their names are called, and we have flowers for them. First one that I have for you today is Holly Woods, and she's the daughter of Robin Woods.
All right. Justin, do we have a photographer?
If I may ask the board at the end if we can do a picture with all the kids, please. Next we have Devin Hansen, daughter of Daryl Hansen.
CBU, all right.
We have Andrew Angulo, son of Dr. Jamie Angulo. And Andrew could not be here today. He's actually working. Next we have Kayla Hopp, and she's the daughter of Sean Curtin. She had a final today to finish at Cal State San Marcos. Next we have Amaris Garcia, daughter of Antonio Garcia. And we have Donna Jean Vaughn, daughter of Jim Vaughn. All 6 will be receiving their scholarships in the mail. They're for $500, and they can use that to the college that they're attending or will be attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. You want to come down? Victor, we'll be here for a few more hours. So you want to run out and get some swag for us? Don't just go ahead, buddy. Knock yourself out. And speaking of teachers, from the Riverside City Teachers Association, President Tim Martin. Mr. Martin.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. I'd like to comment tonight on a changing district philosophy concerning expenditure of LCAP funds and our reserves, and on the priorities our members have expressed in discussions about how to spend that money. In past years, I have expressed concern about how general fund money was being spent and on the size of our reserves. It seems appropriate that I express appreciation for the opposite effort. RCTA fully supports making spending decisions that reflect a priority on current programs and students and more generously using our savings in that effort. Although none of us would advocate for spending like there's no tomorrow, the leadership of RCTA is pleased that a new balance is being struck between saving and spending. Our students will benefit from this new philosophy and practice. The Executive Board has had a number of conversations recently about the use of LCAP funds for the 2016-2017 school year. We are behind the new emphasis on visual and performing arts. It is one element of a more well-rounded learning experience and will help to enrich the lives of our students. We agree strongly that helping students who have fallen behind in reading has to be one of the very most important uses of LCAP funds. Although we appreciate the reading intervention efforts at all grade levels, we think a focus on more early prevention efforts, making sure students can read by age 9, makes a lot of sense as well, which is a board goal of yours. Additionally, we agree with providing academic support in language arts and math for all students who need it. However, our executive board expressed particular concern for our English learners. The challenges they face in not only meeting grade level standards and graduating, but the strenuous task of being college and career ready means that we should be generous with our additional support and help. How to do this for English learners and other students in need. Programs like the Elementary Summer Program, Read 180, Heritage, Puente, and Avid in part. But we cannot underestimate the value of purchasing quality textbook series and curriculum. Like the adoption of the McGraw-Hill English Language Arts for grades 3 through 6, all other content areas, including at the secondary level, should share this same experience of a thoroughly vetted curriculum and textbook series that are well supported by teachers. Investing wisely and generously in good and proven curriculum is a preventive and supportive strategy. Finally, thank you for the emotional and social services being given to students. We hear how good they have been. We know there are more students out there who would benefit from this support and hope that it can be expanded so more kids at all ages can benefit from individual and group counseling. Thank you for all of your efforts to take care of our children. As these are my last board comments this school year, I want to express my appreciation for Susan Mills. She has made a very positive impact on this school district for a lot of years, but this is especially true of the last few years in her role as assistant superintendent. Her service and leadership have been good for all of us, certificated and classified staff, management, and ultimately our students. I am very grateful for who she is and what she has done. On behalf of RCTA, thank you, Susan, for your many years of faithful service to our students and to all who serve them. And I know you've had a lot of social invitations tonight, but let me throw in one more. On Day of the Teacher, just stop by Shamel Park between 4 and 6:30. We have the real taco guy, all due respect to my classified colleagues. And I promise, if they're not the best tacos you've ever had, they will be in the top 3 or 4. You can be there for 2.5 hours or 5 minutes. When we started 3 years ago, there were about 300 to 400 we served. Last year we served, we think, over 600, and we're prepared for 1,000 this year. So come on by and have a taco or two.
Not that we all don't know, but when is the Day of the Teacher?
May 11th.
May 11th.
Actually, that was in my notes. I apologize for not saying that. And did I say Shamel Park?
You did
also?
say Shamel
Okay,
Park.
yes, May 11th.
Things aren't getting that.
A week from this Wednesday.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Martin, and your work with this district. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to our consent calendar. These items are usually seen to be routine and enacted by the board in one motion. Are there any items that any member of the board would like to pull from the consent calendar before I advance? Mrs. Allaby, thank you.
I would like to pull G14, please.
G14. Is that the right one? G, and then G2 and 3? Okay. I'm advised, Mrs. Allaby, if I could do that. Okay. So, outside of G2, 3, and 14, do I have a motion for the rest of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Allaby. Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Second. Please vote. That carries 5-0. Thank you. Mrs. Allaby.
Yes. Should we start with G2 here?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it'd be a good idea.
I think that what we've done here is we've put 2 different kinds of amendments here that need to be addressed, and they're pretty much the same, but we need to decide which one is most important.
So why don't we look toward, thank you, Mrs. Allaby, for that instruction. Dr. Hanson, what would you advise?
Thank you, President Hunt. Let's take item at a time. First off, G2. G2, the Board of Education is being asked to approve the amendments to the existing employment agreements of our Chief Academic Officer, the Chief Business Officer, Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Support, and Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, and the contracts are regarding their terms of service and total compensation. And again, it's respectfully requested that you approve item G2 on those contracts.
And those terms are for, is that for 3 years, Dr. Hanson?
Correct, 3 years.
And then the fiscal and the an increase to match that was given to the certificated and classified, 4.75.
Correct.
But not the Me Too.
Correct.
Thank you. All right. Mrs. Alavi, is that how you understanding it is?
Yes, indeed. I'll move for support of item G2.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Do I have a second? I'll second. Thank you. All in favor, please, not involved, just vote how you want. That carries 5-0. Thank you. Dr. Hanson?
Okay, for item G3, the Board of Education is being asked to support the employment agreements of 3 new appointees to position of assistant superintendent. The board had a chance to meet a couple meetings ago. Of course, we know Ms. Kylie Ibarra has been recommended to serve as the assistant superintendent of leadership and development. Then Mr. Sergio San Martin has been recommended to serve as the assistant superintendent of operations and facilities, and for the promotion of Mr. Tim Walker to serve as the assistant superintendent of pupil services and special education. And again, it's the same. It's regarding their terms of service and compensation to reflect those that we previously just you approved as a board.
All right. Do you have Mrs. Alavi?
And I so move.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Do you have a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Please vote. And that carries as well.
And I think it's just appropriate, although we recognize them, but again, Kylie, congratulations and welcome as the assistant superintendent, and Tim Walker, you're not new in our district. Congratulations for your promotion as assistant superintendent.
Mays, would you help us with G14 now?
I just wanted an overview, please.
I'm sorry, although cabinet members have contracts and you've just approved them, management, confidential, supervisory, and the board is represented in this item on G14 for the same equivalent raise of 4.75.
All right, thank you very much. Do it.
So clarification, this is the same for teachers, for classified,
right,
for everybody.
Exactly.
Got it.
Thank you, Ms. Alavi. Thank you, Dr. Ms. Khadijah.
I will so move.
Thank you, Ms. Alavi. Ms. Alavi moves then G14. Do I have a second on that, please? Thank you, Dr. Mr. Lee. Please vote. All right, thank you. Those all carried. To give some explanation to what Ms. Alavi's motions talked about was we agreed to the 3-year, the board agrees to 3-year contracts. We agree to give the 4.75, which matches what our bargaining units have, but we do not agree, and we're going to look at a way under our Finance and Compensation Committee, we will not have Me Too's going forward. We are going to build a system of meritocracy where, which is much like in the private sector, and we'll be working on that with input from a lot of different sources in the leadership of Dr. Hanson. All right, we'll move now to our discussion and reports. Very important. H1 is student graduation dropout and college eligibility rates. Antonio Garcia, Mr. Hanson, and Mr. Perez. So where's she going to college next year?
She's going to UC Santa Barbara.
Oh, you're going to need that raise.
No kidding. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing, actually.
But the freshman dorms are on the beach. Can you believe that? I mean,
yeah, it's... let's
congratulations.
Thank you.
Superintendent.
Let's get to the task at hand. No, appreciate that, though. Thanks, Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt and Dr. Hanson, members of the board, your desire for our students' improved learning and well-being is clearly evident and very much appreciated. As part of our ongoing efforts to inform the board of the ongoing work of site and district staff and the resulting outcomes, this evening I'll be presenting to you information and data, both current and historical, on our district's graduation, dropout, college eligibility, and also our graduates' college enrollment, persistence, and completion. Certainly feel free to interject questions along the way, and I'll also be pausing a couple of times during the presentation for further questions. This presentation is aligned with our LCAP Goal 2, which indicates that we prepare all students to be college, career, and world ready upon graduation. The timing of this presentation is such that the 2014-15 data that comes from the California Department of Education is set to be released very soon. The certification of the data by the CDE has been delayed, though, which means it's not currently available on the DataQuest website. And once again, I'm referring to the 2014-15 data. When it is available there, I will inform the board. Also, I may call on others on my staff and colleagues to assist with any Q&A on some of the data. So to put things in a context, I'd like to walk you through a timeline that starts in 2010. We can certainly go back further, but I want to start with something that Mayor Loveridge mentioned, which is Completion Counts. So Completion Counts is an initiative that was launched when the National League of Cities from the U.S. Department of Education announced that Riverside was one of 4 cities nationwide that was to receive a 3-year, 3 Million Communities Learning in Partnership, or CLIP, grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The focus was to raise college completion rates. So there was a lot of training that was built in for counselors. There were courses that were developed in math and English to adjust and that were adjusted to align with college level courses such as expository reading and writing at Cal State University San Bernardino, aligned with their requirements, and intermediate algebra at Riverside Community College. At that time, Riverside Unified set some goals. Actually, Riverside as a city, because it was collaborative with the city colleges district. 90% high school graduation rate by the year 2020, and a 62% college going rate, or A through G, I should say, college eligibility rate by the year 2020. So as we move from there, you'll see that the next couple of items deal with middle school. We made some changes to board policy in regard to our calendar, our academic calendar. Our middle schools used to be aligned with our elementary with trimesters, and we changed that from trimesters to semesters to be better aligned with our high school and make sure that our students at the middle school were prepared for high school. And we're used to this, this calendar system. At the same time, or around that same time, we also approved policy that allowed middle school courses taken in mathematics and foreign language, Algebra 1 courses and higher, and foreign language courses to be placed on the high school transcripts. This allowed students to begin to have a very tangible connection with the promotion of going to college, and also gave them some real credits that would count towards their A through G eligibility. In 2012, we changed our graduation requirements to be more aligned with the A through G requirements. I'll be providing a little bit more information on the next slide on that. In the fall of 2012, as part of the Completion Counts initiative, we hired Etrust West, an education consulting firm that worked with RUSD and also with Alvord to conduct an educational opportunity study. As a result of that process, an outcome was the Blueprint for Action. In it, we identified gaps, we identified highlights, we identified subjects representing barriers, for example, for our students achieving A through G eligibility. And it also gave us a course to follow. From that, the Heritage Plan was born. It allowed us to identify areas of focus under the RUSD Blueprint for Action that committed us to data analysis of our African American student population, The purpose of the Heritage Plan was to increase high school graduation and college eligibility because of the gap that we recognized at that time. As a result of that, that also prompted the revision of our counseling plan. And you've heard an earlier report on a study session this year on the counseling plan. We last year also contracted with RCOE, where we had all of our counselors at all of our high schools and all of our middle schools trained in a new way of looking at transcripts, a transcript analysis process. We not only included our middle school counselors, but we also included our administrators, principals, and assistant principals at both middle and high school to build that capacity and to norm and be able to have that potential to make sure that all of our students' transcripts reflected their work and their progress towards A through G completion. This year, through LCAP, all of our 10th graders took the PSAT. It was paid for through LCFF funds. As a result of all 10th graders taking the PSAT, the College Board that coordinates the PSAT and the SAT and AP exams as well, whenever a student takes the PSAT, there are a lot of different tools that are online that become available to students, to teachers, and to counselors. One of those, for example, is AP Potential. What this tool does is, based on the students, not just their overall score, but the type of questions that they answered correctly, it identifies for the student what course or courses they are most likely to be successful in AP. This is particularly helpful for students who weren't necessarily planning to take AP, students who perhaps hadn't taken honors courses or other types of academically challenging courses. For that student, where when the counselor meets with them, they can identify perhaps one course that they can take in AP and give them that experience. So these are examples of what came about. Currently, we have 15 different memorandums of understanding with our local colleges and universities, with Riverside City College, Norco College, Moreno Valley College, Cal State San Bernardino, and UC Riverside. And most of these MOUs build upon the essence and the foundations that Completion Counts established back in 2010. So to delve a little bit more into the graduation requirements before I share some data with you, there are 15, let me back up a little bit. This chart shows our subjects listed on the left-hand column. It has the graduation requirements of our students up through the class of 2015, students that are no longer with us. The next column represents the graduation requirements of this year's seniors, the class of 2016, so that you can see the difference in the number of credits required in each of the subject areas. The column after that are the A through G subject area requirements and how many credits are required for each of those subjects. And the last column indicates whether our graduation our graduation requirements are aligned with A through G requirements. So you can see, for example, that all students are required to take 4 years of English, and that's precisely what is required by the UC and the Cal State system.
Can you elaborate how the CTE coursework is beginning to align with A to G?
Absolutely. So if you recall, a lot of the courses that we've brought forth to you this year and last year, but especially this year, a lot of our CTE courses, we are asking the course authors to ensure that the course curriculum is aligned with the requirements of the UC and the Cal States. And so a lot of our CTE courses, and that's one of the goals that was mentioned at the CTE study session. In addition to increasing the number of students that we want taking CTE courses, we are increasing the number of CTE courses that also qualify for A through G criteria. So you can see then, and I'm going to get I want to expand a little bit more on that CTE piece also in just a minute. I want to focus though back on the math. I'm not going to go through every subject, but I do want to highlight math. You can see that up through the class of 2015, our math requirement was 20 credits, so 2 years of math. The A through G requirement is 3 years. So starting with the class of 2016 this year, students are now required to take 3 years of math. And then getting to the electives of foreign language, VAPA, and CTE. Before this year, our requirements expected students to complete 10 units of either foreign language or VAPA. Starting this year, students need to complete 30 credits, 20 of which need to be in the same concentration. So we want students to have a focus for at least 2 years on one of those areas. The other 10 credits coming from either one of the other 2 areas. Leaves then a balance of 50 electives for students to take during their 4 years for a total of 220 credits. And so you can see then the total of 15 courses that the A through G requirements have, and you can see going back to the foreign language and VAPA that we have 20 credits being required of students for A through G. So the student now has that option by meeting the graduation requirements to take those 20 of those 30 in the foreign language and the other 10 in VAPA, therefore making them A through G eligible. At the same token, the student has the option to not do that and focus more on CTE, focus more on the VAPA, and so the student has options, but one of those options is aligned to the A through G.
Mr. Garcia, before you go to the next item, just to ask a question. This board took action a few years back. I think you were the principal at Arlington at the time, and our number of credits required for graduation was quite low compared to other districts. So where does 220 fit in the Riverside County cluster?
That's a great question, Mr. Hunt. We've looked at the districts across the county, and we're right in line with the majority of the districts. We were at 215, we were a little bit low, and at 220, we're right on par with most of the districts.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder if you could provide that to the board at a mail out sometime, just
Absolutely.
a comparison. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just to give an example, Corona Norco, Jurupa, and Alvord, which are surrounding districts, all have 220 as their credits. But I'll give you a more comprehensive list in a future mail out.
Thank you.
So with that context of graduation requirements, college eligibility requirements, the context of completion counts, taking us through EdTrust West, et cetera, I'd like to share some of the data and some of the outcomes. I'd like to start off with graduation and dropout data on our class of 2015. So this year, last year's class of 2015 had an 89.3% graduation rate. 0.5 of them were what we call completers. These are students who had an individualized educational plan, an IEP, special ed students who were not diploma bound but had received a certificate of completion. 5.2% of the students at CBEDS, when the data needs to be pulled, were still enrolled in one of our programs. And we had a 5.1% dropout rate. When we look at that same class where 89.3% of our students graduated that year, and we disaggregate our data by ethnicity and program, you can see the following graduation rates, and you can see that our ethnic groups have, in essence, no gap, but we do see a gap for our English learners and our special ed students. So we have some work to do in those two areas, or for those two groups of students. As it pertains to our dropouts, again, all students was 5.1% district-wide dropout rate. And once again, you can see the disaggregation of that data by ethnic group and by program. When we look at the last 5 years of our cohort graduation rate, I'd like to point out the first year on this table and the last year, starting in 2010-11, we had an 81% graduation rate in Riverside Unified compared to the county average of 80% and the state average of 77.1%. At this time, we don't have county or state data, but we do have, like I mentioned, an 89.3% graduation rate, and just like we had in 2013-14, we expect our graduation rate to be above the county and the state average.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent, we take a question from Dr. Farouk, please.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So the areas that we were lagging in the English learners and special education, what is the comparative the data on that with respect to the state or our neighboring school districts, just to get some perspective on that? And if you don't have that information now, if you could just share that in the board mail out.
I will do that. I will, let me see, I have some additional data over here, but I do not have that particular comparison, but I can get that to you. I have
just to have context, it's just so we get a sense of how it's affecting our overall numbers. That's all.
Will do.
Are we able to also just tell how much of that graduating group are college bound? Do you have figures on that or not?
Yes, absolutely. That'll actually be one of my last slides. Okay. I'm going to show you for the class of 2014 what percentage of our students actually enrolled in college. And so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So just want to point out that 8.3% increase in our graduation rate and on this slide. So before we transition to A through G completion rates, any additional questions on graduation?
I don't have any. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So for A through G completion, Riverside Unified School District, for the class of 2015, we had a 43.7% compared to the state average of 42% and the county average of 39.7%. Again, breaking it down by ethnicity, with no data at this time for by program, you can see the comparison between all students and our different numerically significant ethnic groups. So mentioned, as we all know, we're very familiar with the Heritage Program, so I want to pull out the African American 40.2% and provide a perspective on that and the outcome of the work that's been done on by the staff on RUSD Heritage. And so we see there a historical 5-year data table on our African American students compared to our all students in RUSD. And I'd like to point out that in this second year of the Heritage Program, we had a 7% increase, and that significantly outpaced the increase for all students. This particular slide has some very similar information. I don't think I was able to put it in your packet, so again, same information on the left-hand table where you can see the African American A through G completion rates going up every year in the past 5 years, just to see a visual comparison to the county and the state averages. And you can see that in RUSD doing some great work as a result of the Heritage Program and the outcomes for our students. And overall, A through G completion, compared to the county and the state over the past 5 years, once again, we see a steady increase of about 3 to 4 percentage points every year for RUSD, which is outpacing the county and the state completion rates. You can see, for example, on the first year, 2010-11, that we were pretty much on par with the county and significantly below the state completion rates. And then 2014-15, you can see that we are above both the county and the state. And once again, this slide is not in your packet, but I thought I'd include it as just a visual, same data on the left-hand bar graph, just as a comparison to the county and the state over the last 5 years. And at this point, I'll pause for any questions on A through G completion rates.
And I do have some questions. First, Mrs. Alabi, please.
I'm just going to comment on your RUSD A through G completion rates, where other is the highest, is the majority of students. And when that's the case, I think you ought to break that down for us. I'm assuming there's a lot of different Asian groups in there and so forth and so on, but it would be helpful for me to see that.
Absolutely.
It is the majority.
Yes, absolutely. So the state doesn't typically report on group sizes less than 200, and we traditionally, when we look at our numerically significant subgroups, we tend to make comparisons with our nominative comparison group, which is our white students, but I will certainly provide
Are you saying that
data.
Other is less than 200 students?
Yes. Well, other incorporates different ethnic groups, Asian being one of them. And so when we look at Asian and when we look at Pacific Islander, Native American, all of that comprises the other. And each one of those subgroups has less than 200 students.
Okay. It still would be helpful to know.
That's a great point, Mrs. Alabi. Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Thank you. I have a question about that slide as well. Do they not report out on English learners and socioeconomically disadvantaged students, or just the data wasn't there yet?
They do report out on those three subgroups, but that data is not available as of yet. Okay. When the CDE releases their data, then we anticipate seeing that data.
Okay. I'd be curious to know that when it does come out, because we heard from the student rep from King tonight that their current class, or their 70% are on completion for A through G, and probably that's our school with the least amount of socio and economically disadvantaged students. And I compare that 70 to this 43. I'm just curious to know what that number would look like.
Okay. We will make sure to get that to you as soon as that data is released.
Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
I'm just marveling at the A through G completion rates of our African American cohort. From 2010, that it was 25.8, I think, in 2010, and 40.2 in 14-15, which is about a 15 percentage point increase, but that translates into a 60% increase. 60% increase.
Correct.
In that cohort. That's crazy. And can we, I mean, when did our Heritage Program come online?
That was in 2013.
13? So you really saw your major boost after that, because I'm looking at, I mean, that is a real success story. That's huge.
Mrs. Lock-Dawson, some of the efforts began with the completion count study. So if you remember sitting in that room many nights.
I do.
And then later, when the broader completion counts was ending and had a balance left for the grant, then we decided to apply for the remainder of that balance to continue some efforts with Heritage. So Heritage was born then, but the work started with completion counts much earlier.
And I realize it's a fairly small number, a cohort, so you're going to get some fairly, big variations in your percentages, but that's such an unequivocal success story. I got to hand it to you. I mean, it's terrific. It's just it's so encouraging to see.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Longo's.
So getting to Mr. Hunt, your question earlier about our students not just being eligible to go to college, but their enrollment. And so there's the National Student Clearinghouse that runs a report called the Student Tracker that's provided to us through the Riverside County Office of Education. And so the latest information that we have is of the class of 2014. So when we look at those students from our USD, this is our USD data, their enrollment during their first year after high school was 65%. Now, of that 65%, when you break it down, there's 28% that went to four-year institutions and 37% that went to two-year institutions. The next column we call persistence data, and that is the students who were enrolled in that first year of college who then enrolled and went back for a second year. And so for the class of 2013, which is the latest data that we have from Student Tracker, 86% of the students went back for a second year of college. 95% were from were at four-year institutions, four-year universities, and 80% were at two-year colleges. And then the third column we call completion. And one of the metrics that colleges use is completion within 6 years. So for the class of 2018, you add 6 years to that. That would have been a college class of 2014, if you will. We had 32% who completed within the 6 years. 22% of them were at four-year institutions and 10% at two-year institutions.
We have a question from Dr. Farouk for you, Mr. Assistant Superintendent.
Similar to my last question, it would just be helpful to have some context on how that performs with respect to state, county, or other neighboring districts.
Will do.
Yes, and Ms. Lockdawson.
I want to go back to the our requirements, our
graduation.
Yeah, the graduation requirements in the unit that's required. So I have had lunch with, well, I don't even want to go, but I've had conversations with several people in higher education recently, and who are constantly complaining about our math preparedness, right? That our kids are getting in there and need remediation. Who here has not heard that, right? You've heard that from Cal State as well as UC and RCC. And I am just curious, one of the things I want to, if there's a way we can tease this out of those tracker data, I don't know, but, you know, there are some kids that are going on that do not need remediation. Clearly, there are some kids that are going on and taking math, my daughter being one of them, right? She's going to college and she's doing just fine. There are other kids that are struggling. What is the difference between those kids? One of the things that comes to mind is, are they starting with algebra in 7th grade and then not taking math their last 2 years of high school, right? So then they do algebra, geometry, and what's next? Algebra 2. So then they don't have math the rest of the, but they've completed their A through G, they've completed our graduation requirements for math. Yet in the last 3 years of high school, they're not taking any math. I'm trying to find out if, you know, if there's some correlation between when kids take math and how prepared they are and whether they're being remediated for it. And if kids who are taking math their full sequence through their senior year. Do you know anything about that, Mr. Garcia?
I can address that the best I can. Would be that So there's two things. One is, these are our graduation requirements, and the A through G requirements. Those are, that's the minimum. Take A through G, for example. Even though there are 3 years required, it's recommended that students take 4 years. It's also our recommendation in our USD for students to take 4 years of math, even though the requirement is 3 years, and that's aligned. But the culture of the schools is more and more is having students take a 4th year of math for the same exact reason that you are stating. Even though a student may be strong in math, having a year at the end of their high school education with no math puts them at a disadvantage when they then enroll in college. Because if you're not using it, then you're apt to, when you take that placement exam at the college or university, then that's going to affect you there. A couple other considerations would be that we do have the EAP, which students is part of the SBAC exam that students take in both English and math, and that score tells us and the colleges whether students need to, their senior year, take an additional math course. We do have a couple of math courses right now. For example, we have intermediate algebra, which was a course that was developed as a result of completion counts in conjunction with RCC, which is an alternative to the Algebra 2 class. So students have some options there. You're going to be seeing some additional math courses coming forth for approval to give students just different options. One course that we're working on is financial literacy. And so we want to make sure that students have options for math courses to take their 3rd, 4th year of high school. So absolutely, research shows very clearly that students who do not take a 4th year of math will not be doing very well in college.
The reason I ask is I just want to point it out to the board too. I think it's a discussion we need to have regarding our policy recommendations or whatever we do that, it's sort of like we have two different planets for these kids, right? Like my daughter took 6 years of math, right? Because she started 7th grade algebra. Well, what if a kid starts, doesn't do that or doesn't go on to do, or starts with algebra in their freshman year, are they still, I think we need to have some clear recommendations, or our counselors need to be dealing with that situation a little bit more, and we need that empirical evidence at our disposal so that we're not creating, what do we have, the persistence rate, right? That could be one of the reasons we're losing kids out of these institutions, because they might not have that math experience. So anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Lock-Dawson. Before I call on Mrs. Alavey, Mrs. Michaels, what time does your kids show up tomorrow at your campus? So I think you and your rest of your Arlington cohort, if they'd like to go home, I know I was going to call on you, but this is going on a little longer. If y'all would, I know you're enjoying watching this, but I thank you, Mr. Dietz, and all of the Arlington cluster. Go ahead. Mrs. Alavey has a question for you. Thank you, Jim.
I'm following up on Mrs. Lock-Dawson's point. If our recommendation is to students to take 4 years, and if colleges are clearly looking for students that take 4 years, and we're not doing more than just saying, please take 4 years, maybe we're underserving our students. Why wouldn't we consider upping that? If we can actually offer the classes that you're suggesting, such as financial literacy and so forth. I mean, it could be that we are not encouraging them to go along the path that maybe makes it a little more reasonable. I don't know.
So
I'm not worried about the kids like her daughter that take the 6 years of math. But what I'm saying is, if you're in a situation where they're getting by as quickly as they can to get rid of it and don't take it for the last 3 years of high school.
If I may, though, I just wanted to say too, I love the idea of having the different types of classes though too, like the financial literacy being a math class that somebody could qualify for, and using concepts of algebra or something within there, right? So I think that's a neat idea if we went forward with that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Something else that if I can interject, something else that we're working on with Dr. Esock and RCC is the concept of testing our students going into the senior year.
with their placement tests and then offering them a course so that they actually can have that preparation. So that would be an alternative to something like financial literacy. And another question for us to pose has to do with acceleration. Some students accelerate so early that they're done too early, or they max out very early, and sometimes because of that time off have an issue in math at the college level.
Or a lack of options then too, like, right? I mean, because not everybody's going to take 2 years, their junior and senior year AP calculus, right? I mean, or multivariate calculus. So what other options do they have if they don't want to do that?
Thank you, Ms. Lugos.
No problem. That's one thing I do want to point out as well is, in addition to meeting these requirements, and keep in mind two things. One is that students must complete the A through G requirements, these courses, with a C or better. So it's not just a matter of passing the class. And then the other consideration for college admission is a grade point average as well. So a student could get straight C's in these courses, which is the minimum requirement. They still wouldn't necessarily, they wouldn't qualify for Cal State or UC because there's a higher grade point average requirement. And that requirement has increased over the years. As you well know, getting into college has gotten a lot more competitive, even in our public university systems. So a good point, and something that we can look into, and also some other considerations as we look at that as well.
Mrs. Alavi.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on that. One other slide you have, which is that the completion rates of college are dismal. This class of 2008 completion within 6 years, 10% for a two-year institution. I assume that's in 6 years they didn't finish community college. Is that the way you read that?
Correct. So those are students that entered to a community college, let's say, and after 6 years, the students who entered community college from that graduating class of 2008 completed, 10% of them completed within 6 years.
But from an 80% persistence rate at the second year, that is dismal. And what we probably also have been doing is we're really encouraging kids to go to college. But maybe we're not giving them the skills to finish college. I mean, that takes a certain kind of different kind of skill set maybe, and we're just saying, oh, good, you got to accept it. But maybe we're shortchanging them. We don't give them what they need to finish.
That's a really good point. And this data, the A through G, only capture, it's a small, it's one metric
right.
And it's college eligibility. Certainly there's many others that we are utilizing, and a lot of through Common Core, through NGSS. I mean, there's a lot that we are doing nowadays through the instructional program and through the curriculum, so that we're not just having students meet the eligibility criteria, but that they are, in a sense, college ready. And that's truly the shift during these times in terms of what we're doing in the classroom from kindergarten through 12th grade, is ensuring students are, if they choose to go to college, that they are prepared not just to enter college, but to be successful and to teach them those skills to succeed in college.
Before I call on Mr. Lee, I'm going to remind the board there are 16 items left, and it's about the same amount of minutes I have left. I can't think of a more important subject, though, to be on right now. But let's just, Mr. Lee, go ahead, just with that comment.
Are you asking me to punt, Mr. Hunt?
No, I'm asking you to speak in big
on that same slide that Mrs. Alavi mentioned. I just want to make sure I understand that table, because it honestly, the numbers do not make sense to me. So after 4 years, for 4-year institutions, after 6 years, only 22% are completing a 4-year degree of the 28 that went. I'm just trying to find, if you look at page
so keep in mind those are two different classes. So this data was pulled at the end of 2014. So the first column is for our graduating class of 2014. That
Right.
same year,
So 28% of our students are enrolled in college after that
correct.
first year, right?
So in 2014-15, during that year, 28% of our students enrolled in a four-year college, correct.
95, right. Well,
I do not have that data here
We-
with me today.
If I might, Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
I recommended to Mr. Garcia to put this single chart because the numbers of students entering college hasn't changed that greatly. So that first column is 28 and 37% of the graduating class of 2014. The middle column is the percent of the students the year before, which roughly the same number, persisted. So in the 4-year, just 5% of that 28% students fell off, and most of the 2 years went back. But by the end of the graduating class, 22% of the graduating class of 2008 completed a 4-year degree, and 10% got a degree or certificate from a 2-year school. And then I can have my team pull the numbers for Mr. Garcia for the years going back, but they're not critically different.
that's the thing that's like very puzzling and kind of frustrating for me to see, because if you look at Dr. Leveridge's presentation, he has a graph on here, a bar chart here, percent of city population 25 years and over completing a bachelor's degree or higher. And so for our entire population, it's 22%. So we're actually bringing it down. So that's kind of mysterious to me when we're seeing all these improvements in graduation rates and A through G completion. So I'm wondering what the disconnect is and why that's not carrying over to more success in college. Percentage of city population 25 years and over completing a bachelor's degree or higher, 22.2% in 2014.
It's good.
But Dr. Lovett is referring to everyone who's living in Riverside, as opposed to who RUSD is specifically graduating.
Charge should be higher.
So a lot of great questions. Some of which we'll be able to respond to and get some clarity with some additional data. And that completion data is certainly something in the conversations we've had with Cal State San Bernardino and UC Riverside is something that the colleges across the nation are actually tackling. So what I'd like to do is if it may please, Mr. President, I'd like to finish off with our last slide here, just to provide a survey or a summary of the actions and services that we have been taking and that we will be taking in RUSD to address the issue of making sure that we continue to increase our graduation rates, reduce our dropout rates, increase our college eligibility, and then of course make sure that our students are not just ready for entering college, but to be successful in college.
So here's what the chair is going to ask you to do. We can all read that, and that's great. Take the questions, if you would, Assistant Superintendent, and with your cohorts, work on them, and before school starts and this summer, I'd like to have an update on this report with the questions, that very good questions that were asked by the board, and help us understand this a little better. Appreciate it, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. All right. Going to move on to item I1, is open a public hearing, and this initial proposal for negotiations submitted by the RUSD. I did? I'm sorry. Oh, local control. What the heck? Yeah. All right, Ms. Carmen Day.
Board President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, board members, good evening. At the last board meeting, we went over some items regarding the LCAP. And at that meeting, we talked about getting a little bit more time with the document that I provided to you. It was a brief, and you should have it in front of you. So I'm not going to review the entire brief, but it was divided up into, I just want to make sure everyone, it's familiar to everyone. I also sent you another copy in the mail out this week. And the presentation's on page 327 of your binder. But briefly, just want to give you an opportunity to know how it was divided up by the priorities expressed by the board. It was also the themes that were developed beyond those priorities through the LCAP engagement process, as well as the analysis of data. And then at the additional consideration section was those adoption, the textbook adoption. And then at that last meeting, I just want to reiterate the points of discussion for the board were around the visual and performing arts, career technical education, the parent center, deferred maintenance plan, and then the one-time versus ongoing funding, all of which I did respond, provide you information on in the mail out this week. There was a request for additional discussion, so if there is any additional discussion or questions that I can answer, that would be wonderful.
I don't see any right now. I think you covered for us already the Family Resource Centers.
Right.
And that's going to be, we're going to walk on that one.
Right. Let me tell you exactly the recommendation I'm making. It remains the same as at the last board meeting, and that is that we, in order to continue on with the writing of the LCAP, we would like to keep those allocation recommendations as stated in the last board meeting. However, we will not be proceeding with those items of discussion that were brought up at the board meeting last time until the board has an opportunity to discuss it further and make recommendations.
And I had a concern about cutting the athletics by $300,000. I'd like to see some of that money and revert into citizenship, et cetera.
We have a plan to provide that training for students that will be not impacting the LCAP, so we can talk more about that later.
Okay, if you can share that with us, that'd be great. Thank you. Any questions? No?
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're good with proceeding with the writing. We'll bring it back to you. Provided you a timeline in the mail out. I'll provide it in this week's mail out as well, just as a recollection for you. And thank you very much.
Wait. Ms.
Just as a matter of timeline and so Ms. Carmody, we talked about making those allocations but not necessarily getting very specific with them and keeping them as placeholders.
Yes.
When can we anticipate a more thorough discussion of those and allocating those funds to where they are going to go?
So for VAPA, that would be May 31st.
Okay.
For the career technical education, that's ongoing through the advisory committee, so we'll be bringing back some information about that.
Okay.
So, but the funds will remain as stated. The Family Resource Center we would like to put that in a study session in the summer.
Okay.
And then you receive the deferred maintenance information from Dr. Lewis in the mail out this week as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board is going to take a 5-minute break, and then by fiat, I'm extending the meeting by 1 hour. So we'll take a break for 5 minutes. All right. Maybe we should get reclining chairs in here. And think about it. We need a taco cart here. We need to what? The doctor. We need the taco cart. You're right. You're right. We could use that taco truck. And that's why we're going to go back to a few more business meetings. So, good to see you, Mrs. Mills. What do you have for us?
I just want to thank Mr. Martin for the kind things that he said tonight. I appreciate it. And it goes to the public hearing on our initial proposal for negotiations. I think this is probably the first time that I have ever seen this happen at a board meeting in my many years of attending a board meeting. RUSD, Board of Education, and the teachers are proposing mutually the same article to negotiate. That means that
That's
we
a good thing,
feel
isn't it?
so, yes,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
very good, that we feel so strongly that for the next year we're going to talk about peer assistance review and the professional growth system and any other articles that are related to that, which might be things like teacher evaluation and other things. And attached is a letter that we signed during negotiations. The assistant superintendent, the director, the co-chair, and of the negotiating team to talk about how we are going to do this together. So we will not be having them come forward because we're doing it together. So that's our
Well, it's a
public
credit to
hearing.
your service, and we thank you, Mrs. Mel.
Thank you.
That's a good.
We're a
good,
team.
Good. I was going to say headstone. I'm going to say milestone for you to leave there. That's very good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions on that item I-1 for Mrs. Mills? No. Thank you, Mrs. Mills. Item I-2 is a public hearing regarding the relating to the consideration and approval of school facilities needs analysis and consideration of adoption of alternative school facility fees in compliance with government code sections. Do we take these together, Dr. Lewis, or
They're two separate items.
Okay.
I would recommend that you open a public hearing for each one separately.
I got to close it. Okay, I closed the last one. I opened this one. So, sorry.
Mr. Hunt and
Yes,
Dr. Hanson, members of the board, just to introduce these two items. These are public hearing items for action items J1 and J2.
Thank you.
I also want to point out that before you on your desktop, I provided a copy that I sent to you in the mail out last week, and this is a comparison of our level 1 and level 2 fees compared with other school districts in our area. And as I noted in the text, that Riverside Unified is amongst the lowest in charging developer fees, and with your approval of the increases that we're recommending, it would put us more in the median of other school districts. So with that, after you open and close the public hearings, I'll ask Haley to come up and give you brief details on both items.
Before I do that, I do have a speaker card request. Mr. Garrison, would you like to speak after Mrs. Calhoun in her presentation, or? Okay, so because you can comment on them. So, wouldn't I have you part of the public hearing, Ms. Calhoun? Why am I closing the public hearing for Mrs. Calhoun to come up? Okay, then Mr. Garrison, why don't you come on up then? Mr. Garrison, Michael Garrison with the BIA, here to speak on the item at hand. Mr. Garrison, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Good evening, board. Mr. Superintendent, by way of introduction, I am Michael Garrison with the Riverside Building Industry Association, representing over 1,200 member companies and over 70,000 employees that work for those companies. Been with the BIA since about November. Prior to that, I worked for Assemblywoman Melendez, and that was after a career in the Marine Corps, which I retired in 2014. So that's a little bit where I come from, just so you all know me. And I do apologize for not having the opportunity to get you all to know you all individually prior to this, and it's always sort of awkward to introduce yourself at a podium in front of a dais. So with that being said, I really wish I was following Mr. Loveridge's presentation today, because he did a really good job, and what he talked about in the neighborhood alignment is part of Riverside's initiative, which is Streamline Riverside. And we've been having sit-downs with the city planners there regarding Streamline Riverside in a way to, here's the strategic vision for the community as a whole. And obviously, the building industry wants to be part of that vision, because home building and home ownership is really what it's all about. and home building is one of the largest, it's critical to our local economy here. And so we need to do everything we can to ensure that we sustain that. I've provided this, I think I made this available to all of you. This is school fees by unified school district throughout the county. You have 11 of the 18 are level 1, which is $336 moving to $348 a square foot. And then out of the remainder, you will be the third in line there. So you, this district, level 1 is obviously what the building industry likes. You know, that's, hey, that's the standard minimum. And 11 of the 18 are at level 1. You are currently at level 2 of $377 with the proposal to go to $399. Understand we did review the study that was provided, and I always appreciate the fact that you provide us with that study so we can have our consultants look at it as well. I will tell you, compliments to Mr. Floyd, the study's tight, and again, there's nothing that overwhelms in the study. However, I think the assumptions of the industry are what I ask the board to consider. I provided also a graph of the industry's activity in Riverside County. Specifically, this chart is for Riverside, the region of the city of Riverside, over the last 30 years. It's tanked. It's tanked. And there is no, to be honest, there's rumors floating that we're going to hit another recession at the end of 2018. So we are not, this industry especially has not recovered. And my position right now is really to push back on all the increases to our industry between water districts doubling their fees and capacity charges. It's going to move from an estimated $55,000 per door to $90,000 per door for a builder to build. That cost goes somewhere. And I just ask the board, and as I've been asking of every school district, every city council, every water district, to look at the effects that all of these different components has on an industry that is so critical to our economy. So many jobs are tied to this industry. The future of our communities are tied to this industry. And at this point, until this chart goes back up to where it needs to be, it's very hard for my members and the employees that are tied to this industry to say, oh yes, please make it more expensive to build in Southern California. We're already experiencing a huge housing crisis in California. We have a housing shortage. So that's both sides of the aisle are saying that. And you know, I was just explaining that this BIA is sponsoring the school bond along with cash. And we're investing millions of dollars to get that school bond passed so that we have adequate resources to improve the facilities in the state of California. I will leave you with that. Again, I ask for your consideration and look at how this, as part of the holistic picture, the picture of Riverside, and how it affects the industry and how that's going to affect where this community needs to be. I really do appreciate your time and your consideration.
Dr. Farouk, did you have a question for Mr. Garrison or just in general?
Mr. Garrison, you referenced 2 documents. I don't know if we have copies of that. I didn't receive one. If you could please share that.
It was in an email. Beth, I think you got the one we sent, Mr. Garrison sent me. I asked us to get out to the board. Did we get it out?
I can give you these right now if you'd like to see them.
But I wanted to have Mr. Garrison's comments on the record, so. Okay.
Sure.
I apologize, Mr. Garrison. I thought that had gotten out to the board.
I would have come prepared with a PowerPoint presentation, and we could have taken a picture afterwards. It would be...
So the Marines, huh? All right, good deal.
I have to add a little Marine humor.
All right.
Oh, does anyone else?
No, that's fine. All right, so I'm going to now, thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
I will now close the public hearing. Ms. Calhoun?
Oh, good evening, President Hunt. I always do that. Good evening, President Hunt, Superintendent, and trustees of the board. Thank you very much for allowing him to speak. Certainly, I would have liked to have seen the comments. He didn't share those with us prior to this evening either. So,
And, let me clarify. He sent them to me. I sent them on to the district office, and I think the miscommunication was I wanted them out to the board and to you and Dr. Lewis. But that's, I apologize, Mr. Garrison.
That's okay. So this item is actually routine, comes up every year for the review to the board. The school facility needs assessment is conducted every year. We have a great consultant that works with us, Douglas Floyd, and we're looking at several aspects of building industry, including the number of houses being built, the effects on our schools, capacity of our schools, and we are allowed by legislation to charge fees to mitigate the effects of student generation rates from these houses being built in our areas. I didn't prepare any really specific questions for the school facility needs. If you have any specific questions about the calculations, I can bring up Mr. Floyd. But as it is, for the last 2 years, we have not increased our fees. We've stayed steady at $377, and that's been since 2013. We are seeing increases in development. As you know, we have a CFD coming before you, but not all of our developers bring forward CFDs. And so we do have to rely on our developer fees solely for mitigation of the students that are coming forward. And we haven't, as I said, haven't brought up our fees for 2 years now. And so our justified fee is $399, which puts us, like I said, still in the lower quartile of those fees being charged around our county and the different districts. So I would like ask just your consideration in allowing us to bring forward those fees of $399, which would be Resolution 33.
Yeah, we have a question from Mrs. Alla before you.
Sure.
I have a two-part question here. First, is there a timeline to this, that you have to pass this within a certain window?
Actually, we're past our timeline. It is every year. Our timeline last year was in April, so we're just hitting that timeline. So our fees reverted back.
We would have to pass it tonight.
Yes, and they do become effective immediately.
Okay, and so the next time we would have such a window would be a year from now?
A year from now.
Okay. And my question to the board, who know these things better than I do, is whether or not they feel that this particular increase would have a negative impact upon our facilities bond that we're suggesting that we put forth in November.
All right. Well, before we end, Dr. Farouk, you have thank you, Mrs. Alva. It's a very good pondering. Dr. Farouk?
So my comment is that I understand how we're seeing the comparison with the districts, but when I think of the districts that are most relevant directly to us, they're both, essentially lower fees than we are even at currently with Alvord and Corona Norco. So from a competitive standpoint, that's something that concerns me, because when I look at Rialto and Beaumont, Yucaipa, those aren't, again, from a broader economic development perspective, I don't see those as more comparable as I would Corona Norco and Alvord. So that's just something I'm just putting out there. In terms of economic development, correct?
Okay.
Ms. Alabi, I don't know what that's a great question you asked, but I do know a question we asked years ago. Haley's predecessor was to do a modular on a campus takes a stupid amount of time with the Department of State architects. It's like 8 months or something. Yeah. So this money really is used. This is not enough money to build a wing. This is really to add a modular.
Yeah, this would not generate enough money to build a wing.
Right. So
even Spring Mountain Ranch, which is purely on developer fee right now, they are not entering into a CFD. When it's fully built out, which it's maybe a quarter built out right now, we would maybe garner about $3 million. That's with all 900 homes built out.
All 900 homes?
Yes, and right now they're about 270. So we're slowly, gathering those fees, but no, it would only provide for modulars.
And where does $399, Ms. Lagdassan, I forgot about you. Where does $399 place us among our elbowing districts?
So the handout that Dr. Lewis provided to you? Yeah. So it puts us about third in line of those that are allowed to charge level 2 fees. Not all districts are allowed, can charge level 2.
I wanted you to make that clear. Not all
Correct.
districts.
Not all districts can charge level 2, that's correct.
No, I don't think Alborz
We have to
can.
meet certain conditions to do that. And if I can just say, in your comment about the bond, we're going to be asking, if we move forward, asking our voters to extend dollars to us to support. And I think it is in our best interest to do our part in collecting all the dollars that we can possibly collect as well.
Mrs. Locke Dawson.
That was the point that I was going to make, is I think we had this discussion last year, because I was concerned about that specific thing, it would be a little disingenuous to pick and choose who we ask money for. But I also, by the same token, we also had this discussion that I didn't see a really compelling need in the study that showed that there would be such a need for the amount of money we were asking. So I don't know if you remember me making this point last time, but so I felt like just because we could charge it didn't necessarily mean we should, because I didn't think just because we had the authority, and this is the one thing we do, and we have authority over to assess this amount, that it doesn't mean that we should be levying that fee. So that was my comment last time. So you want to answer that?
So my comment back to that would be that we have continuing development. And so Spring Mountain Ranch is a great example. Slated for 900 homes, we have 276 homes there now. There's no ability to build a school. Those students will have to go somewhere. So we will have to improve the facilities at High Grove. And so this is one of the only means we have of collecting dollars to do that.
And we have
to improve those sites.
We have a development coming in, we're voting on later. No, is that development that's coming in the, I'm sorry, Ms. Locke Dawson, you finished? Yeah. The development up by Lake Matthews, is that a CFD?
They will be forming a CFD, so those will be mitigated homes. Okay. But there are multiple developments planned in that area. Right. Full build out, when we talk to the planners in the county, that El Sobrante area, there's a specific plan for up to 1,500 homes. Doesn't mean they're all going to come along tomorrow, but there is opportunity for a vast amount of development still in that area. And it is a fast growing area.
And if the board approves your recommendation on the new boundary area, those new homes are coming in, they're going to be going to Harrison.
Correct. Okay. And so all of those fees will be going to improve Harrison for those students.
So I've closed the public meeting. That's it. We're going to move on to item I3. How does that differ from I2?
The next public hearing?
Yes.
Sure, you can open and close that as well. So
Please.
I'm
opening the I3. Go ahead.
So this next public hearing is just for the fee justification report, which is done every 2 years, and it follows the school allocation board, which they also review their fees every 2 years, and that affects only level 1 fees. Oh. And so in order for us to even charge level 1 fees, we have to adopt a fee justification report every 2 years to match the school allocation board recommendation of level 1 fees.
And is that J2 or J1?
That would be J2.
Okay, thank you. Anyone like to speak on item I3 of Ms. Calhoun? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item, let's go to J2 because that's a little bit easier. And that just has to do with we accept, to even charge those fees, we have to accept the study, right?
Correct.
That's
exactly
a gymnastic
correct.
kind of thing. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Locke Dawson. I have a motion to approve J2. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Please vote. Ms. Alavi? Try again. Thank you, ma'am. All right, that carries on a 5-0. Hit them with those level 1 fees. We'll go to J1 now, and I think you've heard the debate. Is anyone, any comments? I will say that, though I agree with Mr. Garrison that fees are down, and, excuse me, not fees are down, but buildings down, but there are homes being done in the Riverside area in infill, and in all candor, we haven't raised the fees in 2 years. It isn't because of Nathan Miller doing a better job than you, I can tell you that. But I want you to know that. Yeah, you're much better than Nathan. You let him know we said that too. And but I think the $3.99 is justified for the small amount of homes. It is 22 cents per square foot, the average home $2,500. I'm not real good at math. I should have Patricia's daughter here, but I think it's about $500. Isn't that right? So, how much? 700. See, I'm a poli-sci major. What do you want? So, Mr. Lee.
If we don't, if we were not to approve this, would we have to make an alternative motion to keep the fees the same?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you need to provide a motion indicating what level of fee you are willing to.
Yeah, let me just speak to this motion, even though I think it's going to go the other way. Being in this field and selling homes in this city, I can attest to Mr. Garrison's statements. There are a number of new home communities in this town where sales have been slumping, and I think that any fees that we impose on developers are always going to get passed down to the purchasers. And I think in a district where our enrollment has not been changing a whole heck of a lot, and Mr. Hunt, you mentioned Hawthorne, and I believe last meeting we had a report we actually have capacity at Hawthorne. So I think that there's still capacity in this district to mitigate some of these infill properties, because infill, there's almost no infill left in this city. And as far as Spring Mountain Ranch, unfortunately, that development has not been selling as briskly as that builder would like, and I think that trend will continue. So while the amount of the increase is not much, I just think it sends the wrong message at this time, and I just don't see that. Again, I don't think a lot's going to change, just like a lot hasn't changed in the last year, that a lot's going to change the next year. So I would like, if the time's appropriate, to propose an alternate motion to maintain the fees at the current level of $3.77.
I'll entertain that motion because I have no other questions right now. Do I have a second to Mr. Lee's motion? That would keep us then at $3.77?
Correct. And I just, if I could just speak real quickly, I know adding capacity, it doesn't sound like a huge impact when we can plop down a portable. However, it's not just putting down the portable. You're adding to the infrastructure needs of that school site. When we put down a portable, we don't necessarily increase the number of restrooms. We don't increase the office size. We don't increase the multipurpose room
Ms.
size.
Calhoun, I'm going to interrupt you because I don't have a second right now to debate this. So appreciate your input. Do I have a second to Mr. Lee's motion?
Point of order. I'm not sure what we're doing. Is this J1?
Yes, it's J1. He's asking for an alternative motion to...
Wouldn't that be for J2?
No, J2 was the study. We adopted the study that allows us to do level 1 fees. Is that right, Mrs. Calhoun?
Correct. School facilities needs analysis was J1?
The J1 is the increase she's asking for. Is that correct, Mrs. Calhoun?
Correct. J2 was the fees justification, which aligns us with level 1 fees that the state allocation board provides, and that's kind of every other year. The one we're considering now is the increase of level 2 fees from $377 to $399.
Well, I'm somewhat confused, but I'll second it. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I thought we were still on J1. I understand.
So, Mr. Lee, your motion then is to basically...
that part I'm not...
Your motion will be, and I'll call on you just a moment, Ms. Lockdoss. Your motion proposed with the second, Ms. Allaby, is to not increase the fees this year, to let them stay at $3.77.
Correct. Keep the fees at $3.77 per square foot.
Right. Mrs. Lockdoss.
So we can discuss it now. But on the flip side of that, Mr. Lee, our housing is still, and to Dr. Farouk's comment too, but our housing in Riverside is still some of the most affordable around, right? So it's not, can you speak to that? Because I do think that to slap fees on increased housing prices for another region.
I mean, it depends on who you're comparing us to. I mean, if you look at the study that Mr. Hunt has and comparing us to other districts, I mean, we're being compared to, Corona, Temecula, Palm Springs, Murrieta. I mean, there's also Banning, Alvord, Lake Elsinore in there too. But I mean, I think Corona's more expensive than Riverside. Temecula's more expensive than Riverside. So I mean, the ones that are higher than us are actually less or more affordable, right? So
yeah, that's what I was. According to this, because it shows places like Hemet and Fontana, I think, it looks like, not Fontana, Hemet
But I
and San
think-
Bernardino are
right.
actually higher.
But I'd make the argument that the cities and the districts with less fees are probably more desirable places to live.
With less fees. Because, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm torn on this. I was torn on it last year, I was torn on it the year before, because I really struggle with this one, because I know it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal to people who have to pay it and the people who are trying to buy houses, and I just have a thing about government coming in and taking money when, just because they can. I mean, so, I don't know. I have struggled. I don't know. I'm going to stop.
All right, well, I'll be voting against Mr. Lee's motion because I do believe we need to be a self-help district if we're going to ask our voters to support a bond. And so we need to say that we're getting money where we can. We haven't raised the fees in 2 years. So I think it's that's where I'll be voting. But Dr. Farouk, excuse me.
Well, to your point, President Hunt, I would say the costs, as Trustee Lee mentioned, are ultimately going to be passed down to the people itself. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's not. I don't know if that necessarily would, send a message in terms of the bond or anything. I think the people are going to end up paying it in either scenario. Yeah.
I understand. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I'd just kind of tag along with what Dr. Farouk said. I mean, essentially then you'd be asking with your argument, Mr. Hunt, that the people who are asking to vote for the bond to pay twice. Once through their bond dollars, and that's going to go on their tax assessment, and then again when they acquire the property through these developer fees.
Good argument, Mr. Lee. All right, then we're going to, I see no other questions. Please, I'll call for the vote.
Could you review
This is supporting, this vote will, if you're voting yes, will mean you'll keep the fees at $377, and we'll go from there. Everyone's voted. That carries 4-1. Right, Gailey. All right. So the fees will stay at $377. So now we'll move on to item J3, and that again will be Dr. Lewis. Or is that you, Haley? Seismic. Additional funding for seismic.
Yes,
Thank you.
this is just a state requirement for any application that we submit to OPSC. If you remember with Ramona High School.
OPSC is who?
Office of Public School Construction.
Thank you, ma'am.
And so if you remember when we've been working on Ramona, we were required to do additional seismic upgrades to meet all the state requirements. And so when we do that, the state then offers some grant funding. And so this is the application, and this would be a resolution accepting our application to the state.
Very good.
Your acknowledgement of the application.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Calhoun? Do I have a motion for J3, please? Thank you, Mrs. Lockdawson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lallavie, thank you. Please vote. And that carries 5-0. J4, STEM Academy, local school boundary priority for enrollment. This will be from Mr. Walker. Thank you.
Mr. President.
J4, which is the items are in file. Pardon me, Mr. Walker. 465 to 468 in your books.
Mr. President, Dr. Hanson, members of the board, tonight's board requested agenda item involves the STEM Academy and the creation of a local school boundary priority for enrollment. The Board of Education is asked to discuss and determine whether to establish a 5th grade lottery set-aside for families residing in close proximity to the Riverside STEM Academy. The proposed set-aside will allow 10% of the incoming 5th grade spots to be available exclusively for 5th graders who reside within the identified boundary surrounding the Riverside STEM Academy. The proposed boundary is the attendance area of the school when it was known as Hyatt Elementary School, with the exception of the transportation area from the east side. Over the past 3 years, seats for the entry into the Riverside STEM Academy for the 5th grade have been approximately 100. If a set-aside were to be established, 10 spaces for the incoming 5th grade would be provided to local families who reside in close proximity to the school beginning in 1718. If interest exceeds 10 spaces, a lottery would be held. Provided for your review as part of the discussion is the following data on page 466.
All right, would you take a question from Mrs. Alavi, please?
No, I was going to make a comment.
Okay, just let me wait.
Go ahead, let
Any
him finish.
questions? Thank you, Ms. Alavi. I asked for this. I believe that we need to do this because we've essentially plopped a school down, a specialized school, in the middle of a neighborhood that the neighborhood gets no benefit in their home value of the specialized school. And so we owe it to those people who may want to send their child there and may buy in that neighborhood, just as you would if you wanted to send your child to Kennedy or Lake Matthews or wherever, you would buy in that neighborhood. We owe it to these people to give them value back for their home, and I think it's a very small amount of seats for that. And I personally think it won't be used that often, but it's in the right mode. Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Alavi, apologize.
I have some concerns about this. I hope I can articulate them well. This choice program is very specific to a select student group who wish to excel at math and science. And as a choice program, it should cater to a child's educational focus and not to where they live. Not all students are going to be able to handle the rigor of the STEM Academy, and if this was a neighborhood choice, I believe students and their parents might choose it out of expediency and convenience and not out of true direction for the STEM school. I understand your motivation. I thought your motivation for this was to create a tighter knit neighborhood connected to the STEM school, and particularly to address some of the concerns of some of the neighbors. But I don't think this is the way to accomplish it, because the area is really changing demographically, and there are fewer and fewer young families in this area. And the neighbors who are upset about the STEM traffic are going to be upset about the STEM traffic whether you do this or not. So I didn't want those two issues to be confused. The traffic problem is separate and can't be mollified by this action of trying to connect it to STEM attendance.
I wasn't bringing it.
Well, in case that was the case. No. And it won't be a neighborhood school in the way that Bryant is a neighborhood school with core knowledge, because core knowledge is a program that every student can absorb and is intended as a fundamental basic knowledge that for everyone. And 2 hours of math and science is not equivalent, and it needs to be a choice, an absolute choice on the part of the student. I'm also concerned over skipping over the 300 or so on the waiting list to give this unearned advantage. Some of those who have been on the waiting list have been on the waiting list 2 years, and now we're going to just do that, just wipe that out. We've already given 10 slots to UCR, as you know, and we have also given added weight to district students, which we've already done. And this is a big advantage in itself. I don't think we should piecemeal out these slots to STEM randomly and keep slicing up the 100 students into different pies. And I don't think they should be politically motivated. Just like with DLI, this should be a choice, not a given. You certainly could be opening up the door to other choice programs being neighborhood choice programs too. I mean, I can just imagine if everybody in, like, say, the Washington area suddenly had an advantage to go to DLI, and you wiped people off that waiting list. So I'm just not sure that we want or need to monkey with this lottery system. I think we shouldn't do it. And then finally, I think we ought to ask ourselves once again why we can't create another STEM-focused school in the western end of the district to help with all of these issues. Mrs. Lock-Dawson and I spent many, many hours with Mrs. Carmen Day coming up with a really wonderful high school model of equity and outreach to high school students. So we should be talking about creating more possibilities for younger students who are ready to enter into this fantastic high school that we're starting to create. And with the 300 or so student waiting list, I think parents have already voted by putting their children on these waiting lists that that's what they want. So that they're speaking loud and clear to us that that's what they should do. So I don't think we should act on this. I think we should rethink this clearly and not pass something that will do something we don't intend.
Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Dr. Farouk.
So,
No, you're, put you up there.
Good.
Dr. Farouk.
if Trustee Dawson, go ahead. Okay, so I have a question and then a couple of comments. So the question I would have to the administration is there any other solution that you guys can propose that would help address President Hunt's comment about the neighborhood value? Is there any other options that have been considered besides what he's proposing currently?
No, we had discussed this previously at the request of the board to explore the potential for a local set aside for students, and the recommendation was to bring it back to the board and have consideration. We don't have another alternative for those in the local area, as it is open to everyone in the district at this point in time as a specialty school. There are no boundaries. This would establish boundaries.
And the traffic has no factor in this at all?
No, it's not going to change the traffic.
Okay. Well, given that, my two comments are, as Trustee Alvey mentioned, I think we really need to make a focus on building the capacity of STEM, period, because obviously the people want this, and I just think the equity issue is really a broader conversation. My concern is that I feel like this could open up Pandora's box. I get a lot of comments already with respect to the fact that we have that allocation for the UCR professors. I mean, I teach at UCR, so I mean, I'm not, but I'm just thinking that there's a lot of people, like whether it's on the east side or wherever, that feel that they would like to have more representation with respect to STEM overall. And I just, what I'm concerned about is I know, I respect the place where President Hunt is coming from in terms of trying to bring value to that neighborhood. My only concern is in where will it stop in terms of, people trying to justify that there should be other allocations. And I'm concerned about that broader dynamic. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Mr. Walker. Perhaps it might be for Dr. Lewis, but have we talked to the neighborhood at all about this? And did that come up in any of the community meetings that we conducted out in that area?
None of the residents were asking for priority into the STEM program.
Okay. I think it speaks to your point about the demographics in that area. And the reason I ask that is because I know, looking at our survey results of our satisfaction that we just got out, one of the things we scored lowest in was decision-making and involving the community and our parents in decision-making. So that was kind of related to this. I think this is one of those things that, it's almost like a solution looking for a problem. And I appreciate you, Mr. Hunt, what you're trying to do as well. But I didn't hear any of the neighbors I don't know that would mollify any of their concerns about, I think you used the word mollify, yeah. They're upset about other things that I'm not sure this would ameliorate, but I was kind of half jokingly just saying to Mrs. Alvey, maybe UCR could buy 10 houses and provide faculty housing like they do at UC Santa Barbara, and that would take their 10 slots, but so you could have a twofer. But I know I don't think I would like to do this right now, so I would just put that out there. Thank you.
Before I call Ms. Lee, can you clarify something? Is UCR getting 10 slots or 10%?
10 slots.
10 slots, all right. Mr. Lee.
For fifth grade. Just for clarification, there might be confusion. This is just for the fifth grade that's proposed, because once people don't get into fifth grade, they go on a waiting list for the fifth grade, and then that continues to the sixth grade and so forth for the time that they are there. So you couldn't just jump in the sixth or seventh grade. There's a 300, then 200, then a 100-person waiting list as you proceed through that STEM Academy. So this is to get in at fifth grade.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I appreciate staff's recommendation. I also appreciate what Mr. Hunt's trying to accomplish. And if you look at some of our other choice programs like DLI, there is a preference for entry if you live by the school. Same thing with core knowledge, even though I understand Mrs. Alavi's point in regards to the curriculum. And then you could even look at robotics at King in terms of, those students have preference to get into that program. However, I still don't know if this solution kind of solves our equity issue, and I feel like that equity issue is really the bigger issue with STEM, at least for me, and has been since I've been on the board. And I feel like this could just further gamify the system, and those with means or those with some critical thinking skills could rent a house, rent an apartment, buy a house, and provide a further advantage for their students and further put that equity out of balance at that school. So I think, again, to Mrs. Alavi's point, we brought it up at other board meetings, is really to solve the issue of equity and to get that waiting list down, just like we've done with DLI, added multiple schools over multiple years. Core Knowledge has 2 schools. It seems obvious to me that we need to figure out a way to add a second or even possibly a third, one at a time, I get it, school, and I'd like to see that study and where that would work and what that would cost really, really soon, especially if we have a bond coming up, and what that would look like to maybe convert another school to STEM, and whether that looks the same or doesn't look the same. But I really don't want to vote against this because I just feel like there's other opportunities. So I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Second. Motion is for this table and has been seconded. There's no debate. Please vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
That carries. All right, we'll move on to item J5, and this is about the second reading on the Lake Matthews area, the new development. Let me just say I asked for this to be pulled last time because I wanted to take a look at it since that is my area. Dr. Lewis and Mrs. Calhoun were able to show me that there are no intersecting streets. It's kind of a isolated, you can come from the north or the south. So I think it's a very good plan, and I would, unless anyone wants to speak on it, I would propose that we approve this.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, let's please vote. Well done by the staff. It has a north and a south, but you can't get in by the side. So, all right, we'll move on. That passes 5-0. We'll move on to J6. This is about the bonds, CBO. Thanks.
Good evening again, Mr. President, Dr. Hansen, Board of Trustees. This item is a direction from you to the county treasury to move our bonds from a pool to a tax-exempt vehicle that the county would direct that to. So if I can entertain any questions regarding that.
This was what was discussed with the Finance Committee?
Yes.
So, all right, the Finance Committee thought it was a good idea. Mr. Lee?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Mrs. Locke-Dawson. Please vote. Cook and McGass. All right. J7 is a resolution of the board for adequate and equitable and stable special education federal funding. This is a resolution we'll be sending on to our delegation, Mr. Walker, Director Walker, or Assistant Superintendent Walker.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Hansen, members of the board. Tonight, per the request of the board, I bring before you a resolution in regard to the Board of Education considering moving forward on creating an adequate, equitable, and stable special education federal funding request to our local legislators. In 1975, President Ford passed into law the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, creating a mandate for public schools to provide a free, appropriate public education to students with disabilities who qualified for special education services and programs. At that time, Congress promised 40% of the costs of that student would be paid for by the federal government. To date, the federal government has never supported that above 17%. They have not fulfilled their promise, and such creates a local general fund contribution into special education in order for local boards of education and districts to pay for the cost of special education. I've prepared for your consideration tonight a resolution that would go forth to our congressmen in the area. I'll be happy to read it to you, but I know you've had it for a period of time. So it is rather lengthy, and it's comprehensive. And I also have created a letter for Dr. Hansen to sign that would go with the resolution if it's your pleasure to take action this evening, and that would be forwarded on your behalf.
We have some questions for you, Assistant Superintendent.
Sure.
Dr. Farouk?
Yeah, I just was curious, what prompted this? Is there a movement to advocate for this particular issue? Because since this happened a long time ago, I'm just curious.
This is this comes up often, but in this particular, this comes from the board itself. President Hunt asked for this to come back after having some conversations related to local general fund contribution in Riverside Unified School District and the budgetary issues associated with funding of special education. I'm also a member in the SELPA organization for the steering committee of the Coalition of Adequate Funding. So this is something that we advocate for on a regular basis at the federal level. This would go to the local level for our legislators.
Thank you. I'm happy to share this with Congressman Takano's office to advocate for that. Thank you.
I did ask for this because we do have a congressman who is known as the teacher in Congress, and I think it'd be good to have him see if he'd like to carry this for us in advance. Mrs. Alavi.
I would like to make a motion to approve item J7.
All right, but before I accept a second, if you would hold that motion. Mrs. Lock-Dawson? Okay. Okay, Mr. Lee? Okay, then Mr. Lee seconds that motion.
Mr. Hunt, I do want to recognize that we have a member of the CAC here tonight representing the CAC in support of this action.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted to point that out this evening.
Thank you for staying.
Mrs. Finelli is here.
Did you want to add? Did you want to say anything to this, Miss? Okay.
Teresa Filikowski.
If this passes, I was going to ask, we can have that letter from Dr. Hansen, but Mrs. Alavi and Dr. Farouk have a close personal friendship with Congressman Takano, and I would ask them if they would consider on our behalf carrying it to him over a cup of coffee.
That would be great.
And talking to him about that and taking Mr. Walker along if you need to, et cetera and so forth. Please vote. Let's see if we pass it or not. Oh, it does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for pulling that together for us. Mrs. Alavi, if you and Dr. Farouk will make arrangements with Dr. Hansen to how we handle it.
Yeah.
All right, J8, resolution of the Board of layoff of certain certificated personnel. Thank you, Mrs. Mills.
Yes, staff recommends that the Board of Education approve this resolution adopting to reduce, actually, it's not eliminate particular kinds of service, and it ends up being just a 0.4, which is a 40% of an FTE by the district for the next school year.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Any questions for Mrs. Mills? Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Mrs. Lock-Dawson moves approval of J8.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Alavi. Please vote. And that carries. We'll go to first reading of a new policy based on new law, absence and excuses. Again, Mr. Walker and Dr. McGuire. Dr. McGuire.
Before you, you have a recommendation for first reading of Board Policy 5113, absences and excuses. If it's your pleasure tonight, you can approve it. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire. Any questions for Dr. McGuire? What's the board's pleasure? Would you like us to go to a second reading, or you can move to approve it tonight? Dr. Farouk, are you moving to approve? No. Oh, Trustee.
Yes, I was going to make a comment about that.
Mrs. Alavi, do we have an English problem here?
No, I mean, not at all.
No.
I've looked over the three policies, two of which are coming back to us and with some revisions, and they sound great, and this one was okay.
Thank you. Are you making a motion for approval then as it is?
Yes, I would be happy to.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Dr. Farouk seconds it. Please vote. Thank you, Dr. McGuire. Mrs. Lock-Dawson. That carries 5-0. We now have a second revised policy. This is first reading, I thought? Okay. On sexual harassment, go ahead, Dr. McGuire.
Again, this is a revised policy for 5145.7, sexual harassment. It's up for first reading. However, if it's your pleasure, you can pass it this evening.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. McGuire on this?
Exactly. We ran out of time.
This is really the second reading. Well, yeah, no, it's first reading, I guess it was taken.
Well, it was on the last
Right.
meeting, but we saw it. They did change a little bit of the wording, but it's much better now.
Is that a motion, Mrs. Alabi?
Move for approval.
Okay, do I have a second to Mrs. Alabi's motion? Mr. Lee was a little quicker. All right, please vote. Dr. McGuire, please
Thank
codify that. And let's go to data breach notification, first readings, new board policy 1341. Renee Hill. Or Chuck Szilagyi. Who's often mistaken for Marie Hill. That's what it says. It says Renee Hill right here, so now I got you. Good.
Board President, Mr.
All the time.
Board President, Mr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, board members. Tonight, before you, first reading for new board policy 1341, data breach notification. Just this year, Governor Brown signed legislation that updates the current California data breach notification laws and data encryption laws. So what this legislation does is it updates the code to clarify what encryption means in the current code, and also lays out standard format, timing, and when we have the duration of our notifications. So right now, this policy has been written to align with those new statutes.
Okay. Do we have any questions for directors, for our director on this?
Move for approval.
Mrs. Alabi moves for approval on first reading. Do I have a second? Thank you, Dr. Farouk. And please vote. Thank you, Director. Appreciate it. That carries. New board policy on 3555, child nutrition program, first reading.
Good evening.
You're not Gavin Brody. It says Gavin. All right. So.
He's also available.
All right,
We're both
Gavin Brody is
available
here. Thank
to-
you. Oh, good to see you. Have you got out to our 20 acres yet? No, but have you been out to our farm yet since we last met you?
No, I have not.
Okay.
We met at the Grow Riverside Conference.
Oh, good, good. All right.
It's local and
Tell us about this child nutrition program, new policy.
So, I'm just going to introduce it real quick. This is an intent to expand our services with regards to child nutrition and what we're providing to our students. And so it's documenting a practice that we do and expanding it to the middle school. Because currently, right now, we do offer at the elementary level that a student that runs out of money at their account, they can get a reimbursable meal for 2 days. And it gives them an opportunity to replenish their accounts. And that wasn't the case at the middle school, and we're recommending that we do that at the middle school.
Very good. Mrs. Alabi has a question for you, though.
Actually, just to show you that I do indeed read these with a fine-tooth comb, there's a misspelling in 1.7 of unsuccessful, otherwise I see no problem. And I'll move for approval.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Alabi. Do I have any other questions for? All right. Do I have I'll second the motion. Please vote. Ms. Alabi, thank you for your good work on that. Thank you, Gavin. Okay, board member comments. I'll go to Mrs. Alabi first.
Thank you. Just briefly, Dr. Hanson and I did go to EOC the other day, and I was so impressed. I have to tell you just briefly that in every single class we walked into, and I don't know if they were primed to give us the right answer or not, but unsolicited, they told us how much they loved to teach there, which was pretty awesome to have every single teacher tell us that. And I thought that was, I mean, we usually get positive teachers, but these teachers really were very effusive in telling us how much they enjoyed teaching at EOC. Also, did you know they had a program there where the kids could get certified in, fixing computers, right, Dr. Hanson? It was that tech class. I didn't even know they had that, but with that certification, they can walk right out and get a job, and the job's a good job, too, like a $50,000 a year job. So I didn't even know we had that kind of program there, and we should be making more of it. Just wanted to share with you some really good feedback from that visit.
Thank you, Mrs. Alvey. Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, President Hunt. So I wanted to make a recommendation about the transfer process. I've shared this with Dr. Hansen. I've been getting feedback from parents from other communities. Actually, Trustee Alavi and I had a meeting with is Lynn, right? No, it was Mays.
Mays and
It was
Haley.
Mays. It was Mays. Yes. Sorry. But yeah. So the comment is really, the recommendation is really that we should have, I think, a more customer service oriented approach, so that when parents get denied, they should get promotional information about all the other options that they have, so that we can potentially still retain them within our USD, and to set up something that involves personal phone calls that are more, again, customer service oriented, as opposed to like a bureaucratic approach and response. So that's something I'd like to recommend. The other comments I have are really stem from a lunch that President Hunt and I had. And so I don't know, President Hunt, if you want to clarify any of these comments, but essentially I would like to recommend that we revisit the survey that we did in the Eastside Casablanca communities about the busing and the neighborhood choice schools and everything. And I want to make sure that the board has a chance to review the nature of how the words are framed in terms of that, in terms of those questions. Also, with respect to career technical education, I've shared before that the Riverside County Workforce Investment Board is, I think, a very valuable asset. This needs to be demand-driven in terms of how we're deciding what types of career pathways that we want to advocate for in our school system. I've served on that board for 9 years. We have all the data. We have industry recommendations we're projecting outward. I would like to recommend that we bring the head of the Workforce Development Centers, Heidi Marshall, or a designated staff person, to provide us an insight about where the county sees this region in particular, the west side area, which is the city of Riverside, about what kinds of trends are happening job-wise, and we start coordinating our efforts, staff and programmatically, around those kinds of trends. And I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about the middle school, central, and the middle college kind of things. Okay, but we can talk about that. Thank you.
Mrs. Lockdawson, the clerk of the board.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I wanted to say, I don't know how many of you have been kind of paying attention to this stuff, but I do, because I'm a mom of high school student and one who also just got into college. But there really is a movement afoot nationwide to address the increasing arms race that is the college admissions process. It's gotten really out of hand. And as a member of the Board of Behavioral Sciences, who I hear from folks are teenage suicides are on the highest they've ever been in the state of California, based on a lot of the pressures these kids are under. And also as a mom who has kids and seeing their friends and the pressure that they're under, it is not what it was even 3 or 4 years ago. It's insane. It's really, really bad. But I did want to credit Mr. Hansen. He's done an amazing job pulling together kids from our high schools and counselors to see what's working and what's not. And I think it was interesting when we sat down with that one group of kids and we were asking them, I went around and I asked them, how many of you are involved in extracurricular activities? And they all raised their hand, and I said, well, how many? Like, they're all 5 or 6 apiece. And I asked them, why? Why are you involved in them? Can you tell me? And each one of them, verbatim, of each other, independent of each other, said, because it looks good on my college application. Not because I like it, not because I'm passionate about it, our kids are doing these things because they are being told that's what they need to do. But there's been a big shift in the college application process now. You may have seen Dr. Rose been sending you stuff regarding this Harvard study. And I know Dr. Hansen initially expressed concern that it was the Harvard Graduate School of Education that was putting this forth. But there are many, many, many universities that have signed down now. Their admissions officers have signed on, and the admissions units have signed on. So this is not something that's just a Harvard recommendation. It's building steam, and I just want to let you know our USD is at the vanguard of it. We're really doing some some really proactive things with our social and emotional counseling and some other things. So got to hand it to you guys. And I don't know if you heard on the radio this morning that, Malia Obama is taking a gap year. And this is, there's a recommendation now. She's entering Harvard, but not till 2018. And there's a group that's advocating for gap years now, and there's a big industry, of course, that's developing that will help you give your child a meaningful experience in the gap year, which you could pay up to $20,000 for this. Or you could, have them do something on your own. But yeah, there's a big, because these kids are missing out on developing as humans, and they're just going right into these college programs. So anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Hansen. He's been doing a really good job on that, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lockdoss. Mr. Lee.
Quick few things. Went to Bryant. I won't say a lot about it because I know you all have been there, but pretty amazing school, doing pretty amazing things, so I'm glad that's a choice for our students. And I was encouraged to hear that they're doing more collaborative work with Adams to help them kind of get on par with what things are going on at Bryant. Attended Remarkable Teens with Mr. Hunt and Mrs. Alvey, and I don't know if anybody else was there, but hearing, to Mrs. Lock-Dawson's point, the things that these kids are doing, and some of them are not even seniors, is their resumes are very impressive. So I worry about their social well-being and the stress they're putting themselves under before they even get to college. And then last point of order about the things that I did, I went to Sierra Middle School with Mrs. Hill was there for their senior prom, which I think is an amazing idea to connect with the community that they serve, inviting senior citizens to their school for a dance, and they have a band and music, and it was pretty cool to see. They invited folks from Goski, and then the students got to invite their grandparents to attend too. I think it's a great example of what our middle schools can do to engage the community, and I'd like to see it adopted further. And I worry with Mr. Ybarra leaving, and he's done such a great job at that school, and I know we'll get someone great to replace him, but I hope we can continue those types of things at our middle school. And then one idea I had that I didn't get to share last time was the exploration of doing some kind of like not a TED Talk, but like an RUSD talk, and almost like a mentor-mentee opportunity. We have some pretty amazing alumni that are doing pretty amazing things, and they're not that far out of school, and they're not either out of college or out of high school. And I think it would be beneficial for our students to hear those talks, and if we could offer them in after school time or early evening time, and then record them so those who can't get transportation can listen to them. And two immediately come to mind, and one I've talked to Lynn about is Diana Albaron, who's somebody I went to school with. Came here, non-English speaking, families worked in the fields in Coachella, graduated one of the top of her class in my year at Poly, went to MIT, and now is the first Latina heading up some satellite firm in Silicon Valley. And she started this organization called Latinas in STEM to encourage girls just like the Hope Girls that were here today to pursue a course in science and opening up their minds to different opportunities, not that it's bad, but not just being a teacher or a professor or a scientist, but like manning satellites that are flying in space. Like, it's pretty cool. And a quick plug for my brother too. He's got a pretty cool job for a historic digital preservation company. So my brother's super smart, computer guy, completely socially awkward. But he found his place, and when he found this job, digitally preserving historic sites for the World Heritage Organization, he found his space, and he just got a promo with CNN, and he's not socially awkward anymore. So I think showing kids the different opportunities they have after graduation would be really beneficial, and I think it could complement all the mentorship programs that we're putting dollars into. And then the last point, and I'll just make it really quick, that statistic, I was telling Renee on our break, that it's super encouraging to hear. I remember when I was on the board, when I was running, I think our graduation rate was like 80%. So to see, I know a lot of work was done prior to that to get to where we are, to almost 90%. And then also to see our A through G increase as high as it has. It's remarkable. To see all of our subgroups who are usually doing less superior to our other subgroups is remarkable. But what's the point if they're not graduating from college? right? What's the point? Either they're not staying here, right? They're going somewhere else. They're not being successful in college. So we're doing all this work to prepare them for the world, and we're not tipping the needle. So I would really like to see us, I don't know who we have to talk to, but we need a data guy or data girl to help try to find how, what is causing this problem. Like, how can it be that right now in our city, 22% of the people who live here over 25 have a college degree, and we're not improving? And you see 50,000 people apply to UCLA, 20,000 people apply to UCR, so more people are going to college. I would venture to bet that, just by sheer numbers, more people are graduating from college, but they're not here. And that, to me, is really frustrating, because it makes, I don't want to say futile, but it makes the work that we're doing less significant. We do such a good job, I think, educating kids and providing good experiences, but, you know, Renee just shared with me one of her story with her mentee about not having the ability, even though she's done everything right, just because of her economic situation. And I know we can't do all things for all kids, but it mandates for me the obligation to lead as a organization, K-12 organization, to partner with these higher education schools to figure out a way of what is happening in between us and them that's not letting them be successful in college. Is it economic? Is it just the academic? What is it? So I would really, with all the other things we're working on, try to figure out what that is. Right. So, and if that's part of the problem, then I think we need to borrow Dr. Hansen's word of backwards mapping. Let's backwards map and figure out what it is that we can do differently. You know, what's the point of offering all these A through G courses and stressing these kids out about AP tests if it's not going to do anything in the long run, you know? So,
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Very, very thoughtful comments. As we see, we've gone late again. So Dr. Hansen and I I've heard from my fellow board members, we're going to have more business meetings. So we're going to look at that the rest of the calendar. So he and I will begin to work on that, and we'll go from there. And I'll report to you. To Dr. Farouk's comment about the survey, is that you recall that Ms. Cahoon told us in the master plan for the bond, if we move forward on a bond, we didn't really look at what we could do to expand Emerson and Longfellow or other type of things to reduce the amount of busing. So that's the question he wants to address, and I wholly support that. I want to be careful how it's worded. And when we did the one for Casablanca, I don't believe we really gave parents the choice of what would you think about if we had a bus by the library that went across would cross Indiana and would take the kids to Monroe. So we need to make sure it's a thoughtful process. We do have 3 meetings this month, just because of the first week of June is graduation week. So I appreciate we all do the board's commitment. Does everybody get this magazine? Do you get this magazine? Am I the only board member that gets this magazine? Yeah, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get this magazine to you. I'm going to get this article to you. Public school facilities in trouble, and it talks. I think it's a good primer for us as we begin to look at a bond. In the span of these 20 years, when it's talking about 1994 through 2013, school facilities changed more rapidly than any time in recent memory, fueled by improved health and safety standards, stronger accessibility requirements, and increased use of technology and expanded programming within schools. And it really, and Haley, it has a part here I want to talk to you about. Is Haley still here? Oh. Mays has a part that you and Dr. Lewis about how we can look at, it has, I guess, our study about our own school district, so we'll look at that. I'd like to get this article out to each of you and work from there. I, too, went to Bryant and was just very impressed. I'm distressed that we're going to lose the young lady, Miss McClure. What was her, Fiona? Fiona McClure, one of the brightest little kids I've ever met in the 6th grade. But she doesn't feel that she'll be challenged at Central next year, so she's going to go to Encore along with her best friend. They're both Little ambassadors. I'm glad to hear that we're working with Adams. I am concerned, Dr. Hanson, that Franklin is not moving as quickly as I would hope it would towards becoming a core knowledge campus, and like to see what some of the boards are nodding. We'd like to hear more improvement on that and where we stand. I know there's concern for some of the teachers, but if we're going to be a district of choice, we have to begin to move forward. And kudos to Ramona. The 25 Remarkable Teens was again dominated by Ramona, and just so proud of them. And one of the young men had only been in this country for 4 years, and had really, Mark Lim got a hold of him, and it's just, the young man's on his way to college, and living here while his family's still back, I think it's Nairobi, so on his own. So it's quite an impressive young man with a commitment to education. Not that I don't hear exactly what you're saying, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. So tonight we will adjourn in memory and acknowledgement of RUSD employee Kathy Evans. Kathy passed away this last Friday, April 29th. She worked for RUSD since 2001 as a career guidance assistant, and most recently she worked as administrative secretary in pupil services and special education departments, and she will be missed. We are adjourned.